running in the night to yap. True. Yap. You sound like dog. That's fucked up and evil of you to say, but you know what? You sound like cat. How do you like that? Now we both have our feelings hurt. Does it feel good? No. Sound like cat is my life goal? All right, fair. Anyway, thank you, Rika Kroy and Ariella. I always want to say Ariella, but I'm pretty sure that's Ariella, for the delicious gifted chips. And thank you, Sassy Leslie. Almost read that as Sasa Lele, for being a bruiser. For 7 months. It's been 7 months. Holy shit. What scene am I supposed to be on? You know what? We'll just go to this scene for now. We'll call it even. I'll be over here for a minute, and then I'll go back to the actual one. I hope that's not too loud, but I also hope it's not too quiet. Oh, hell yeah. We got a little Adrian von Ziegler. All right, so hi everybody. I'm going to be a little bit lower energy, a little bit quieter than I typically might. That's a little loud for me. Than I might otherwise be. Mostly because I don't want to strain myself, and also I'm just a little sick still, but that's okay. My voice is doing better. I do not have a fever, so that's good. I'm still nursing a little headache, but no big deal. Thank you for the delicious gifted Crimber chip. And Zazuna for 7 months. Exceptional. That is exceptional. That is insane. That is genuinely Hobadon Bodonkaru. Yep, that's a word I chose to use there. That is definitely great. Good job, me. True. Yup. Hydrate? Why would I hydrate when I could Sasa Lele? Let's go! Thank you, Sassy Leslie, for the delicious soup. So, what are we doing today? Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the HOLOMARCHES work I was doing, because instead of resting like a fucking reasonable adult, I decided if I was not going to be streaming, I had to be doing something, so I've been working on HOLOMARCHES nonstop for the last 2 days to try and actually make progress on that. Since progress is, just a tad slower on stream. It's more fun on stream because it's collaborative, but it does slow me down a tad. Dodo Bird, thank you for the delicious membership. And Cat Smith, thank you for 4 months as an Axel. Happy 4 months. Also, I have cats of my own, 3 of them, to Tuxedo Cats, and 1 Chinchilla Cross Ragdoll. What? What's a Chinchilla Cross Ragdoll? I'm glad you like him, and thank you, Cat Smith. Dante Lewis, thanks for being a Ruzader. I thought that was a fucking Castlevania profile picture for a minute. Whoa. Is that 7 months? Mari? Also, hi. Be unreasonable. Become ungovernable. That's the plan. That's the fucking plan. Thank you for the soup. Thank you for 7 months, Mari. Thanks. There's a lot of 7 months today, apparently. Nathaniel, thank you for 7 months as a Ruzader. Rest is for the week. I don't sleep for 10 hours. If I don't sleep for 10 hours, I can't function. I try to get like 6 to 10 hours of blinking in. Most. Maybe most days is an exaggeration. Some days. They're fluffy cats. Oh, I see. Huh. Hey, Melty, thank you for being a jackaxe for 7 months. Oop, I got loud again. I'm supposed to be... I gotta calm down. I got vocal lessons at some point coming up this week, so I need to chill out. Okay, here we go. Can't fuck my voice again right before I do my sing training. Jax, thank you for being a Ruzader for 7 months. So how many nat ones are we rolling today, my guy? Let's find out. We'll start off with a dice, NyQuil funds. I haven't had any NyQuil. I should have done that. I sleep. He lied. I said I blink, first of all. Thank you for the soup, by the way, Flapjack Jackson. And I said I blink. Lika Kuroi, thank you for being a jackass for 7 months. Holy shit. Speaking of, I got to start working on the voice pack. I'll do that soon. All day yapper, all night yapper, no sleeper. Exactly, Pup Bear. You get it. Pup Bear. Pup Bear. Pup Bear. It's Pupper, technically, but I want to say Pup Bear because it sounds funnier to me. Thanks for the soup. Thank you for being a Axel for 7 months, Astra. I'm already for swift recoveries. Delicious. Ingrid says 7 months. I can't state how much I'm thankful to have found you. Ooh. Oh, because I keep the demons away by yapping until you're like, you know what? Nothing could be worse than this. I did not roll a natural one, by the way. I rolled a 5. You always motivate me to draw more. Fuck yeah, Ingrid. Hell yeah. Anything that motivates you to draw more is good. Thanks for all the hard work you do. It's truly inspiring. Oh, I wouldn't say I'm a true idol. I definitely would not say I'm anywhere near being an idol. I hope to be an inspiration, though, at some point. But thank you. Bimi Amelie, thank you for 5 chips. All right, let's focus up a little bit. Let's focus. No more chips. No more re-ups. Wait a minute. Let's talk about what's going on today. So, I forgot what I was doing. Today, I'm going to be doing a... You motherfucker. You did that to fuck with me. Thank you for the gift of chip, Nelichka. Today, I'm going to be talking about RPG game design and rambling about that because I fucking want to and I do what I want. But I will also be talking a little bit about HOLOMARCHES, what I've been working on, and where we're going. And just so we have something to look at while I do this, I will quickly show you the progress I've made on the map. It isn't a lot yet, but I went ahead and made a starting player map just to give you the overlay of what the boys are going to see when they first start out. Obviously, I've taken away almost all the place names other than what they're going to be aware of because they're still going to be imported into this nation through the Fiosi people, theoretically. So, I've taken away a lot of place names and a couple markers, and I've zoomed the map in a ton because they don't exactly have a big overarching map of the world around them. It still gives them a ton of hexes to explore early on, assuming that each hex is about roughly 12 miles. They could probably walk 3 hexes in a day, I'd say. So it'd be a safe bet to assume they can move 3 hexes per day, 6 if they have a mount, and it has to be the correct mount for the area, obviously. Like, in these open plains, it would probably be fine to, like, be using a horse or whatever. But once you start getting down to the desert, you could still use a horse if it's, acclimated to that environment. Might be better to grab some camels, and up in the swamplands, obviously a horse would be a detriment more so than a positive. Trekkie, thank you for being a jackass for 7 whole months. You said, I think we all joined Minchie on the first day. So this is the 7-month anniversary for all of us all at once. I have no regrets. Don't worry about rushing the voice pack. I've been an asshole for a month and forgot to listen to it. I'm not going to rush them, but I do need to work on them. Ariki! Thank you for 7 months! I see that's some pretty cool cookies and cream hair you got going on there in that Peter Von picture. What's going on? Axels get voice packs? No, jackaxes get voice packs. Axels get cute kitty pictures, updates on, JP lessons, the amount of studying that I'm doing, which right now is mostly just flashcards still. But I have been moving on to katakana, so that's great. I'm not doing great at it yet, but I'm trying. I've also been moving on to vocabulary words in my hiragana deck. But let's not talk about that. Let's focus up. Yeah. So yeah, I've been working on this grid. I've been setting that up. I've been setting up major quest lines. I have this cool thing I've been using called like Bupple.com or some shit. I don't even fucking remember what the dot is. Anyway, I've been making this like bubble chart where I start out with like major quest hooks, and then I sort of like trail off from those quest hooks, right? In branching paths until I get like these huge trees. So right now I have 3 of the roughly 10 major quest lines I want to set up early on, and each of those has branching paths that go down for about 2 different branches, and then those branch into 2 different branches a piece, so you get like roughly 8 per major quest as far as branches. But then those branches obviously have their own sub-segments, so that's going to create, you could follow one branch up to probably, I would say you could probably squeeze like 10, 15-ish quests out of each branch. So right now, I probably have the groundwork laid down for like, 36, 42-ish quests, but I've got more to go. Bees Churger. Hey, Jorbizzle, thanks for being a bruiser, and happy birthday. Blade Brent, thank you for being a Ruzator. Did you guys know it's Jorbizzle's birthday today? True. Is it normal to have that many quest lines? I've never DM'd. No. I am setting up a ton of overarching quest lines because I think the traditional... Okay. How do I explain this in a way that makes sense? It's too late, Jorb. Sorry. How do I explain this in a way that makes sense? Yeah, I'm insane. Yeah, there you go. I did it. I explained it. Thank you. Thank you. You're right, Zuna. I'm insane. So typically West Marches, since it's so open world, is a system that focuses on being really fast and loose and using random tables rather than a set narrative. And while I do believe that a set narrative that kind of picks a chosen one is not the style you should go with for West Marches, I don't believe that you should be completely narrativeless. I think that West Marches suits a narrative that tells the story of a world or a nation or an area better than it suits a narrative that tells the story of a party or a group, right? So while the main players aren't going to be the whole focus, I still think there should be an overarching narrative that makes some sense. But a lot of that is just disparate narratives, right? So like I've got major quest lines that have to do with the culture down here in the Southwest. I've got major quest lines that have to do with the dwarves down here in the swamp. I've got major quest lines that have to do with the River Lord Lizardmen. I've got major quest lines for the orcs. I've got major quest lines for the Fiozi people. So I've got a couple major quest lines already set up. Right now, funnily enough, I've actually been working a lot on the desert today and yesterday, and a lot on the swamp area to the north. I've got an okay amount set up for the dwarves down here in the southeastern swamp / forest, but I haven't flushed it out a ton. I still need to work on it. I've got a couple cool villains I'm really excited to run with that obviously are going to be like consistent antagonists to a degree, but less so like Saturday morning villain, like cartoon villains. Like they're not going to show up and go, ha ha ha, I got you again, adventurers. It's going to be more you feel the effects of what they're doing through the way they affect the areas around them and the people and the creatures around them, right? So that's kind of cool. Have you added dinosaurs like I suggested? Probably no dinosaurs, but I do have some interesting creatures that don't exist in the monster manual that I've custom designed. I'll talk about that later, though. I've got a really cool villain I think you guys are going to like. But I don't really want to spoil that. The reason I didn't show the little bubble tree on screen today is because I don't want you guys to... I still want you guys to be surprised, too, right? Like, I want you guys to be excited and surprised the same as the players are. Because if you're spoiled on it, what's the point in watching? You know what I mean? Are there Ruzators in this world? Oh, that's a good question. Maybe I could put in references to the HOLOSTARS. I think that'd be fun to put in references to the mascots. I'll figure it out. I think that's a good idea. Maybe I'll write up, that could be cool Minchi content. Oh, I wanted to say real quick, by the way, I know I had to cancel Minchi yesterday because I wasn't feeling great. And I guess I'm still kind of not feeling great. But this is not a replacement for that. For those of you who might feel like slighted by that or whatever, I'm still doing a membership next week. And we'll talk a little bit more in detail about some of the stuff I don't want to talk about publicly. So don't worry about that. Like I said, I'm going to be ramping up production on HoloMarches a lot this month. So I will be focusing pretty hard on getting that done. So there's another Minchi next week. Don't worry. Wasn't your power out too? It went out that day, but I was also feeling like shit. I was already starting to feel like shit during my collab with Haka and Porcelain Maid. And then that day I was really feeling bad. The power went out. It came back on like 6 or 7 hours later. But at that point I was like, nah, I feel like dog. I'm good. That's cool. That's cool. So today, let's talk a little bit about RPG game design, because I have a couple things I do want to talk about that are relevant to HoloMarches and some things that aren't relevant to HoloMarches. Hexfan, the people who are going to be playing this are the HOLOSTARS-EN boys, at least whoever's interested in playing it. And then depending on how that plays out and how many people are interested, I will be fine with that, or I'll invite more people if need be. I can always turn toward interested indies if they have a desire to play, or anybody else in, you know, maybe HoloStars JP boys if they're interested, or whoever's really expresses interest. I will probably poke around and see what I can figure out. Obviously, that will be done behind the scenes, so don't harass anybody, don't ask anybody, don't demand anybody, don't even fucking suggest anybody. Don't pop up in their chat and be like, have you heard that Ruze is going to be running D&D? Are you interested? Just leave them alone. It's fine. If they're interested, I will find out through my own channels. Cool. What were we talking about? Right, gameplay stuff. So, I'm going to start off with the thing that I wanted to ramble about before this, and this has nothing to do with Holo Marches. I mean, it does sort of like by very, very, very distant relation. RK2, who's been a Ruzader for 5 months, says, Ruze, I can only afford free milestones. I need to make them count. Don't know what to say. I need to be sure I don't waste it with something No! The text cut off and RK2 died writing that. That's so sad. Wait, didn't you die writing your last message? I seem to remember you dying last month. How are you alive again? Wait a minute. F's in chat. So here's the thing. I was talking about... Oh, wait. God damn it. Okay. Kiko. Axel for 7 months says, caught between my love of Ruze yapping and Ruze fucking resting when he should. All the same. Happy 7 months, Ruze. Hope you feel better and look forward to the VOD. Hey, listen. I'm feeling okay-ish. I feel way better. My voice sounds better. I feel better. I feel like I've got more stamina. I don't know how long this stream's realistically going to be because I don't want to burn through that stamina. But I feel pretty all right. Thank you for 7 months, by the way. All right, so... What I was talking about on Twitter earlier is I was saying I think RPGs need more negative stats, and a couple people popped up and said, hey, you should play Call of Cthulhu. And I agree, but I don't like Call of Cthulhu as a setting. I don't particularly like Cthulhu mythos, and I know there's a ton of RPGs out there. I should have said D&D needs more negative stats. I do not particularly like the direction that we are moving toward as a D&D community, and that's fine. I could change shit myself. But my argument is that negative stats are good for everybody and should be there. Negative stats inherently make you roleplay better and make it so that everybody has a niche to fill, so that nobody is the unstoppable god. Now, if your power fantasy is, I'm good at everything, I've never been bad at anything, and everything comes to me easily, more fucking power to you. You're boring, and I don't want to play with you, but more power to you. That's cool. But I want more negative fucking stats, all right? I'm tired of people being like, no, my halfling, my halfling should be as strong as an orc. No, they shouldn't. No, they shouldn't. Their body mass is smaller. They're smaller. Orcs are evolved to be huge, muscly monsters. No, your halfling should not be as strong as an orc. And that shouldn't stop you. That's okay. Relax. Why are you mad? Why does that hurt your feelings? Don't you want to feel cool? Would Lord of the Rings be as cool if Frodo was as strong as fucking Gimli or Aragorn? No, it's cool because despite his setbacks, he still made it happen. That's cool as fuck. Like a halfling fighter who's too weak to hold up a fucking, like, I don't know, a big-ass two-handed battle axe, but uses a longsword as if it's a claymore, is fucking cool. That feels awesome. Is it as strong? No, but it feels cool. I don't care. To him, that is a great sword, and that's awesome. Do you have a slight estimate as to when you want the campaign to start? I think the latest I want it to start is sometime late September, probably. That's the latest. I think if you make Mortal Kombat references like Forest Souls would be kind of cool. Sorry for language mistakes. No, that's cool, Metal Chain. That is cool. Hell yeah, our party enforced a chronic disability system depending on fight outcomes per session. Really upped our role-playing enjoyment. If you're playing an RPG to be the cool guy, make good at everything, you should also play a solo RPG. So my argument is that if you really do not want any negative traits on your character, no matter what, and you are hurt or like personally offended in some way by having negative stats, just why are you you don't want to play a role-playing game. You just want to roleplay. And that's fine, go do that. But you clearly don't want a game because somehow you feel like you can lose, right? There is a stipulation here, and I'm gonna put the stipulation up real quick. Here we go. So the classic example everybody gives is, Trekkie says, I like low/negative stats when I get to pick my niche. I mean, agreed, Trekkie, but here's the thing. I don't think that, like, I'm specifically at this point right now, so let's focus in on species traits or racial traits, right? So I agree. Lasting injuries would be really cool. But let's focus in on racial traits for a second. So people will often complain about like orcs having low intelligence, right? Or, I don't know, fucking halflings having low strength or something like that. Or fucking dwarves having low, I don't even know what dwarves have that's low. Dex, probably? Doesn't matter. Point is, people complain about racial traits having negatives to them. But they also get positives every time. And secondarily, more importantly, the reason they have those traits is because it is in comparison to your average human. Because assumedly, it is humans playing that TTRPG. I assume anybody playing D&D is a human playing that game. So when they say orcs have a +2 to strength, I mean, if we're looking at the perspective of orcs to ogres, no, they don't. They have a -4. But if we're looking at orcs to humans, they are, on average, stronger and less inclined to intellectual pursuits, right? Right. Crimzon Rulez, who is famously very human. Exactly. Now, I know a lot of people will be like, oh, but my orc wizard shouldn't be punished for being an orc. You're not being punished. There's no punishment. You're taking the negative for doing something that isn't standard for your people, and that's fucking cool. Like, if you're playing an orc wizard, no, you're never going to be as good as the high elf wizard at being a wizard, technically. But why does it matter? This isn't PvP. This isn't a competition. This isn't like, can I be as good as this guy who's playing a game that's completely separate from me? I mean, no, but do you care? The fact of the matter is you're smarter than every orc that ever lived and smarter than the vast majority of humans. There is probably a smarter high elf wizard than you. But why are you mad? Just like playing a halfling fighter is really fucking cool. Like, are you going to be as strong as a dwarf fighter? No, but it's fucking cool, and you're still stronger than almost every other halfling that ever lived. That's awesome. I think playing around characters' weaknesses is significantly more interesting than playing a character who just hand waves those and pretends they don't exist. Sarah Star says, I don't have anything cool to say other than a reminder that we have 5 months until 1 year. Don't say that. For Mimba, 4 months until actual 1 year. Oh my God, it is 4 months. Holy shit, you're right. Thank you for 7 months of being a jackass, Sarah Stars. Holy shit. Even then, there's always going to be someone who's stronger, so have fun in the build. Agreed. Isn't reading in a medieval setting already put you in like the 10% most intelligent people in the world? I mean, yes, but so the argument a lot of people are going to come up with, and this is fine. Again, let me put up this important stipulation. Do what you want at your own table. If your fantasy is that everybody is just as powerful as everybody else and nobody is born with any specific advantage over anybody else, and despite the like evolution of different races, they're all the exact same, that's fine. If that's your fantasy, that's cool. A lot of people want to like this really high fantasy sort of like anybody can be anything they want to be, and I agree that anybody can be anything they want to be, but I feel like it is more earned when there is a natural roadblock to that. I think that's more fun. However, you are not lesser for not wanting negatives on your stats. You are not lesser for not enjoying like having those drawbacks, but I have the Soulsborne brain rot of I want to struggle for what my character has. So, oops. Hold on, I'm catching up on what you guys are saying. I feel like the funny RP moments of D&D tend to happen with the lower stats on character builds. Agreed. I think anybody who takes themselves so seriously that they can't have negative stats on their characters just probably not going to be a fun person to roleplay with. But here's the stipulation I was trying to get to real quick. I understand why having negative stats can suck in a party where somebody fills the same niche as you, right? So, like, let's take a look at somebody like, let's say you've got a fighter and a barbarian in the party. If you want to be a super buff, super strong fighter, and you're playing a halfling who has a natural -2 to strength, and you're in a party with, like, an orc barbarian who has a natural +2 to strength, that is going to feel bad. Definitely. That's going to be super fucking annoying. I get it. I understand why it's going to start to suck to like roll lower, hit less, do less. They're going to catch more boulders. They're going to push more enemies. They're going to throw more monsters than you. And that's not fun to be the worst version of somebody in your group. Exactly, Silent Eric. But I think that is the one situation in which I understand not enjoying negatives. And even then, I think a good DM can work around that. I feel like having a good DM can fix that. Ariala says, my favorite campaign ever played is a homebrew turtle folk monk. The challenge was absolutely worth it. And thank you for pronouncing my name right. Hell yeah, no problem. I hope I said it right just then. Did I say Ariella again? Ariala. On my first time ever playing, my low-strength warlock miraculously outlifted the 2 strengths-oriented characters in a strength check because they had bad rolls. See, that is also where a lot of the fun comes, Saber. I was going to say, I think a lot of the fun is forcing people into challenges they are not suited for. I think it is super cool, super fun to be like, okay, well, your 2 strength characters aren't here right now, but the fucking tower is starting to collapse. The only people nearby are the bard and the wizard. Do you try to stop it from falling over? That's fun. That's cool because it creates these really dramatic, tense moments where the character who is not built for that has a truly heroic moment. A moment they're not suited to, right? Like the wizard without their spell book having to like make it out of a bad situation, or okay, let's look at somebody like Chillchuck, right? If you guys have watched, here's an example. This is perfect. Have you watched Dungeon Meshi? There's an episode where Chillchuck gets stuck in a combat encounter he is not suited for, but using his abilities, he finds a way out of it because he is good at detecting traps, he is good at triggering traps, and thinking quick. And he gets out of a fight he absolutely could not win by using his fucking brain. And that's cool. That's fun. He theoretically in D&D, it would have been a situation where he's like, well, I'm not a combat character. I'm a skill character. Why'd you do that to me, Dungeon Master? But it's more fun watching that character get out of a situation like that. Jax, thank you for the soup, said, me playing a halfling ratfolk monk and inherently becoming a pocket-sized master splinter. Just gotta find ways to make it cool. That sounds hilarious. Thank you for 7 months, Maki Jin. Flapjack Jackson says, best character I ever played was a gangly nerd elf wizard who died because of her -2 strength, but it made the roleplay around her death more impactful. Exactly. And when you do fail, that's super fun. That's super cool. Silent Eric says, in my most recent game that just ended, I was the worst wizard, but I was only worse because I only took spells that let him try to emulate being a dragon, since that was his wizardly obsession. But you had fun, right? You enjoyed playing that character and role-playing it? Cloud W says, just started my RPG journey earlier this year, and personally, D&D is a great start for new peeps, but then something like Pathfinder becomes more interesting as you're getting more into the RPG world. I agree. I just think that D&D is, in my opinion, it's very accessible, and it being the typical gateway into the RPG world, I think moving away from negative stats is not the right mentality. I think it's pushing people into this idea that you always have to have positives, and if you have any negatives, it's going to be unfun, and the DM's bullying you, and blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get these obnoxious, constant insinuations that if you're not always the best at your personal niche, or if you have a negative thing happen to you, the DM is bullying you or punishing you, or the game's unfun. But you don't need to win. This isn't a competitive game. It's about telling a story. And stories where you struggle and you fail are interesting stories. Those are where stories are at their most interesting. Tsukugani? Wait. Tsukuhani. Thank you for 7 months. I think the problem is when someone's too attached to their character and doesn't want them to fail or die. So not wanting your character to die is completely understandable, and that should be the goal, and you can work around that if you're really uncomfortable with your character dying. Probably play with a DM who's going to be super soft on you, but not wanting your character to fail is just not fun. Sukudani. Oh, okay. Ka becomes Da. I'm an idiot. Sukudani, thank you. 1 month, let's go. Genie Love Dion. I was just about to ask what you like to do for non-fatal high stakes. So if you're not going to do fatal... So personally, I believe in killing characters. I think it creates incredible weight on the narrative. I think it's super interesting as long as the players have fair warning that they are in a situation that could get them killed. I think it's completely acceptable to kill player characters. I would say warn your player characters, even though you theoretically shouldn't have to, right? Like, it is a tabletop RPG about combat, about death, and you're constantly doling out death, so you should expect death to come back. But probably just in case, especially in the modern era of TTRPGs and D&D in particular, At session 0, probably tell your players you will die if you fuck around. You will find out. But as a DM, I tend to be very careful with death. I tend to very much use the narrative to explain that they are in a situation that could get them killed. And if that's failing and they're being especially thick-headed about it, I will often break character and be like, hey, I'm serious. If you do this, there is a very real, very likely chance you will die. I'm just letting you know. Countess Lita says, yeah, I had a TPK before. Felt bad about it, but they were warned, and it was a good story. Listen, if they're warned and it's a good story, it is what it is. Thanks for 6 months, by the way. That's actually really funny, though, Bing Bang Boom. I bet you loved that character. That sounds like an incredible start to a character. Sounds like you want an old school style game. Yes and no, Salt. I think what I mean, obviously I could just not play D&D, right? Well, I mean, I couldn't for Hollow Marches because Perm's reasons. But, and I like D&D. I do like D&D. Dust says, not gonna lie, all your TTRPG content maybe want to give D&D another try without the fear that it has to be something to win. As you should. Just find the right group, really vet them, make sure there's a session 0 and feel out the group. And if it's not for you, just politely step aside, be like, oh, scheduling conflict, sorry, and move on to the next group. No big deal. Anyway, as far as finding another RPG or playing an older school RPG, yes, there are parts of me that do crave that, but I like the gameplay design of modern D&D. I just don't think we should be moving away from having negatives. I mean, we've already moved away from negative levels. We've moved away from, like, item degradation. We've moved away from the idea of having to use, like, magic items to make yourself stronger because almost every class is a self-contained powerhouse by themselves. And that's fine. I think that's okay. It's just once we start to like polish off every single possible negative, it gets to a point where since everybody's coming into the TTRPG space through D&D, it's getting to the point where everybody kind of expects that to be the norm. And I don't think that's a good expectation. And also, I just don't think that's where I want D&D to go, is something that is so global and so approachable for so many people. Finnear Live says, any advice for when you feel like you did not DM to your capacity? Players had fun, but you feel like you could have given them something better. My advice is going to sound counterintuitive, but from my own experience, take a break. I would run multiple sessions back to back to back that I felt bad about, that my players said they loved and blah, 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 blah. But I knew in my heart I didn't put my effort in, and I only prepped for like an hour before the session, and I winged it the rest of the way, and I'm good at that. But relying on that as a crutch felt bad, and I felt like I didn't put my all in, and that was almost entirely DM burnout. I needed to take a break, and I refused to, and that was my fault. So I'd say call it off for a week, maybe watch some content you really like, get inspired by other DMs and other RPG content creators, and then, you know, reconvene once you feel like you put in the effort you want to for a session. Mayor Z said, just started DMing recently, and not gonna lie, my players sometimes come with way better solutions than whatever I thought of originally. Great, roll with it. That's the magic, baby. Just don't let them know you never thought of that. If a player's like, oh my god, this is probably actually a hag pretending to be an old lady in a swamp, and you were like, oh no, it was an old lady in a swamp. Don't say that. Just be like, no, it's not. Wink. And then it was your idea all along. It was always your idea to have a hag. Hell yeah, Swanee Odetta. Thank you for 4 months. And thank you for 7 months, by the way, Mayor Z. Or Aurea says, going against racial characteristics is so fun. My first D&D character was a fallen Aasimar that tried hard as hell to specialize in Radiant instead of Necrosis to go against the grain of being fallen. That's really fucking fun, right? And if you're an adventurer, you're probably not fitting into the mold of your society. Like, if you're a wizard orc, that makes sense you would be an adventurer, because orcs, standard orcs anyway, your classic, like, more aggressive, I kill whatever I see type of orcs, probably won't value a wizard in their society. So you probably would seek out different, you know, cultural norms or seek an adventuring party and try to gain more knowledge elsewhere. Just like a halfling fighter probably doesn't fit into halfling society because they like peace and getting super fucking wasted. No, I'm just kidding. What are your opinions on more sci-fi like RPGs? Do you prefer fantasy ones? Well, I want to try Starfinder really bad, but typically I prefer fantasy, yes. I have never played a sci-fi RPG. That sounds super fun, Stanless Overheaven. Now, don't go so far in the direction of making your character weak that you become a detriment to everybody else's fun, right? That is my cautionary tale, is you can go so far down the quirky path that your character becomes an overall detriment to everybody's fun because they are a detriment to their own fun. I made the mistake. So here's a personal story for me. I made the mistake of playing a pacifist ranger at one point, which is because this is the one setting I'd ever played where there was a vaguely modern setting that had some apocalyptic like thing happen that made the world super fucked up. But my ranger had grown up in a society where he would scavenge the wastelands, but he was comfortable. He lived with a normal family, a normal life in a relatively like well-to-do area. So he had never killed a man. He didn't believe that killing people was right. He believed in like trying to talk things out. So like our first encounter with bandits, he refused to kill anybody and he was trying to like knock them unconscious or find ways to like talk about it when the bandits were clearly trying to kill the players, including my ranger. And this eventually led to butting heads a lot with the group because he's like, we can't just kill these people. They're people. And it was just not fun for anybody because I was trying so hard to stick to this idea of a character who had never killed somebody and was squeamish about the idea of killing someone that I was taking the narrative tone of the campaign and shifting it a bit, right? Which is fine to a degree, but you don't want to do it so much that you make it unfun for everybody else. So it was, you know, it was a learning experience. And eventually I leveled out on the character and gave him I personally made it so he had to have a conflict with himself about, you know, the nature of, well, it's me or them. It's them or me. These guys are going to try to kill me, and I have to make a decision. Or they're going to kill my friends, and I have to make a decision, right? It was interesting, don't get me wrong, Don, but there are times when characters... That's not even a super egregious example, right? Because I was still fighting, I was still making myself useful, but in any combat with like a humanoid enemy, I would tend to be a detriment, and it would create these drawn-out arguments that didn't need to be there. Similar to like playing an unfun paladin, if that makes sense. How often do you think someone should actually look at the big picture with their characters? Always. You should always keep in mind, if you're talking about the big picture as in the overarching narrative of the campaign and your party and how much fun they're having, always look at the big picture and make sure that your character is going to vibe with them. And that everybody's comfortable-ish with the way the characters don't vibe, right? So, for example, a paladin's a good example, right? If I wanted to play a lawful good paladin who doesn't believe in, like, executing enemies who aren't fighting back, that's fine. That's a justifiable argument that you can have, and that could be fun character tension with other players in the group. But if I wanted to play a lawful good paladin who would beat the brakes off his own party if they jaywalked, that's not fun. That's not a good time. Nobody's having a good time with that. That's boring, that's annoying, and it slows down the game. That's fine, War Chortle. If you have fun role-playing those characters, you should. Stinky Ed said, not gonna lie, this makes me want to give D&D a go. Do it, Stinky Ed. And thank you for 5 months. Yeah, it does lead to your character being excluded, and by extension, unfortunately, because it's hard for people to separate character from player, often it will lead to you being excluded, and you don't want that. How do I feel about kinkus? Conceptually, they're interesting, but I don't particularly like animal head on people body type characters. It's okay. What kind of characters do you like playing? Almost entirely martial, but I have a strange, not strange, I have a little bit of a fascination with utility wizards that use utility spells exclusively. It's a learning experience, exactly, Costa Rinks. Yeah, I think for Zama-sama, that's interesting. One D&D group I was in, one of the players was offended by how roleplay worked, and it was so upsetting because I loved to roleplay, but it was hard to explain the process when it feels so natural to do. I think it is important to understand and develop the language needed to explain that separation, or you're not going to have a good time. And I think it's also important to understand that some people just have boundaries they don't want crossed. For example, I've been in groups where, and this hasn't been frequent, but I've been in groups where people had an uncomfortable level of like romantic tension in their role play, and nobody wanted that. And they're like, well, I'm just role playing. It's like, but nobody wants that. Please don't do that. Like, I don't want to role play that. I don't want to role play the NPCs interacting with you that way. I'm just not interested. But on a similar note, there's some levels of exceptional violence people don't want role played. Like, a lot of people don't want to hear you role play torturing somebody. And you can still have that be a part of your character if that's important to their narrative without role playing it, right? You can just be like, oh, this scene happens, moving on. Saifa Belnades is not a utility mage. Not everyone wants to play Fear and Hunger. Exactly. And I think Fear and Hunger is cool. And again, you can have that be a part of your character. Just maybe don't sit there and fucking describe everything you want to describe, because that's weird. And most people don't want that. How much roleplay is too much? It depends on the table. Some people want to stay in character forever. Some people take it all the way up to fucking LARPing or whatever. And some people are just don't want to do voices and don't want to roleplay and say like, my bard says something convincing and tries to bribe them. And that's fine. It's whatever you like. I'm Googling so much stuff right now. Utility Mage Kenku. Have I ever done LARPing? No, but I have done Amped Guard, which is less roleplay, more just beating the brakes off each other and like allowing actual physical contact, like headshots and tackling and shield bashes. I prefer that because I want to be able to actually throw my opponents or get thrown by my opponents. I feel like LARPing is a little too rules heavy and physicality light for me. I want to be able to get hit in the face. I want that to be a threat. Yep, agreed, Hazakura. So here's a little stipulation for you. I've only ever DM'd one D&D campaign. So there you go. There's a spoiler. I shouldn't probably be on my high horse, but that's where it's at. It did last 3 years, but I only DM'd one D&D campaign, and I had a large spectrum of players. I had players who really liked role-playing, and I had players who absolutely would not do a voice, would not say any line of dialogue as their character, and would just say, okay, my character says something that communicates something like this. And then I would say the line for them and be like, does this sound right? And they'd be like, yes. So then I would reply as in a character voice as the NPC, and that's how our role play would go, right? So it'd be something like, oh, welcome to the village. She regards you with like a sly smile, and the old lady's cracked face like upturns into what looks like something that seems sort of mischievous but well-meaning. And then, you know, the player would reply, my character says something that's kind of polite but guarded. So I would reply, okay, would something like, thank you for your welcomes. Is there anywhere I could shop around? You know, like I'd say something like that back to her, and that's how our kind of role play would go, and that's fine. But there was also people at the table who talked completely in character with voices and all that fun shit. Hey, thanks for 7 months. A ninja. Woo! Many more months to come. Do you know anybody else in the VTuber family that loves D&D like I do? Nope. But that's okay. I mean, well, no, that's not true. I think there's a bunch of the girls probably like D&D. I think they've played in the past. I know Vesper played D&D. As far as the current roster of HOLOSTARS boys, I don't know for sure. I haven't really asked. I know that Axel has expressed interest in playing D&D. I know that Bettel has expressed interest in playing D&D. I think Armus enjoyed the one-shot, so probably Armus. Do I think any of them are as like fucking like tits deep in it as I am? Probably not. That's okay though. I like your funny words, Magic Man. These streams always make me really interested in tabletop games. Play tabletop games, trash can. That is one cute trash can. Thanks for the soup. Oh, yeah, exactly. Calliope Mori seems to be really into D&D. I'm pretty sure Fauna had, like, D&D merch and stuff. So, yeah, a lot of the girls seem to really like it, too, which is awesome. I think even Magni played. Yeah, no, Tippus as a whole played it, actually, when Vesper ran it. So, yeah, there was that. Yep. I've never played Kids on Bikes. I wouldn't know what that is. The Warforged. Honestly, I watched a little bit of that. I'd forgotten, but I watched a little bit of that. I actually really liked Magni's character. I think that was funny. I didn't watch the whole thing, though, so I'm not 100% sure how it turned out, but I liked Magni's interpretation of the Warforged. I thought that was fun. Yeah, I'm excited to run this one for sure. What was I talking about? Oh, so I have not watched any House of Dragons now. So one of the things I've been thinking about a lot with West Marches style campaigns is that I need to find a way to... It's a tough balance, right? Between gamifying it and keeping it interesting and establishing verisimilitude so it feels like a role play in a lived-in world, right? What I mean to say is that there are many mechanics that I need to sort out to make it make sense that it's drop in, drop out role play, but I don't want to sacrifice narrative weight or interesting characters to do that. I think Beer and Chips D&D, where you just go in and punch dragons in the cock and fucking, like, I don't know, dance around and get drunk in taverns is super cool and super fun, and that's fine. That is not my preferred play style. However, what I do like... but I do understand that there is a certain level of gamification that has to happen to keep it engaging, especially with this specific style of playing D&D. There is a certain level of beer and chips that has to be present. Otherwise, I would be writing way too much. I couldn't possibly keep up with every player and every player's personal narrative arc. So the players are going to have to build their narrative arcs around what happens to them and around the world, not the other way around. And that's fine. I have made no progress on this map, and I don't know that I'll be making progress on this map. I'm keeping this here specifically as visual interest and to talk about specific areas as I get to them. Pathfinder 2e? I played a little bit of 2e for about 2 sessions. I liked it a lot. I like how crunchy it is. Well, Mars hacks, so I think what's... I think you could still make that work. It's just going to be harder, and you need to get your players in really, really early. My fear with that is if I get the players invested now, if I contact the boys now and I'm like, hey, you want to play in this thing? And they're like, yeah, let me write up my backstory. It's going to be months, and they're going to forget about it or be uninvested by the time I get there. And I don't want to write a bunch of shit around their characters, and then they're uninvested. So I want it to be almost feature complete by the time I contact them. How do you organize your setting notes? I don't. I've been very bad about that. For that 3-year campaign, it was 2 full pages of notebook paper, and all of the rest of it was floating around in my head because I'm a fucking idiot. I'm trying now to be better about that, since it's stuff that I think you guys might be interested in, and I can't just keep that sitting in my head because then you have no access to it. So I'm writing a lot more of it down. Recently, I decided to make my quest lines on a big bubble graph where it has like, a bubble in the middle, and it says like, interesting narrative hooks. And then there's a bubble popping off of that says like St. Mary Anne's, and a bubble popping off of that St. Mary Anne's bubble that says a character that's associated with that. And then a bubble popping off of that says like, conflict with like an enemy they have. And then there's a splitting bubble off the one before that again that says, character that they're attached to that's important, that's missing, or something like that, right? So I started doing that for quest lines so that I could kind of explain more visually to you guys what's going on, so it's not just floating around in my head. Do you like CRPGs like Owlcat's Pathfinder games or Baldur's Gate? I don't play a lot of CRPGs. I played Baldur's Gate 3, and I liked it okay. I quit around Act 3, unfortunately, just because it got overwhelming. And I've played a little bit of Kingmaker, but not very far at all, like 2 hours. So I don't play a lot of CRPGs. Ardenay says, as someone who's never seen a West Marches style campaign, would it just be easier to think of it, approach it like an MMO? Yes, think of it that way. If your DM's good, hopefully they'll make it more engaging than just an average MMO, which, I mean, average MMOs are still good, but the strength of tabletop RPGs is that it can be tailored to the player and that everything is possible, where MMOs are obviously limited by being a video game that has to have preconceived programming. And you can only really account for what you predict the player's doing. So yes and no. From a player perspective, it's fine, I think, to approach it vaguely like an MMO, but with a little bit more of a conscientious, like, attitude toward existing in an actual world. Think of it like a very roleplay heavy MMO. Floyd W says, thoughts on players who want to play a certain race in a setting where a lot of things go against it. For me personally, Floyd W, typically I would just say that doesn't exist in the setting. Sorry, pick a different race. But in this specific instance, for example, there's no tieflings in this world. I'll find a way to make it happen. If you really want to play a tiefling, that's fine. I will probably find a way to make you cursed. It's going to be like werewolfism, essentially, like lycanthropy or like vampirism, because it's not something you can turn off, right? It's just on, but you are seen as cursed in some way. It's not a species. It is an affliction. So I'll find a way to make it work. And you should too if your player really wants to do that. But typically, I don't think you're wrong as a DM to say, nope, that doesn't exist. As long as you tell them at session 0 when they're making their character, and you give them the grace to step out if they're not interested, if they can't play that character, that's fine. Oh, yeah, that's fine, Dusk. Yeah, keep docs, keep wikis, that's cool. Honestly, if you could link those to me under the hashtag HOLOMARCHES, maybe I'll see notes that I forgot I said, so I can reference them myself. Mikuru-chan says, question, is it better to have a character fleshed out before you start or leave it vague so you can add to it as you go? Both. Have wants, desires, fears, and things you like and don't like. Maybe have one good, strong narrative hook in your backstory. Leave everything else vague so that you can develop it as you go, because you don't want to be so hyper-focused on killing the people killing the bandits who killed your parents that you don't give a shit about everything else in the world. You still want to be flexible enough to have a reason to be adventuring with these people and sticking with this party. What about making a craft system? Sorry if you saw my previous comment on it. So Metal Chain, I don't do crafting systems in TTRPGs. I do loose crafting systems. I don't do rigid crafting systems. Rather, it's too much work. I do what I call loose crafting systems. For example, one of the players in my 3-year campaign that I ran previously, they had killed an Ochug, and they were a barbarian, and they liked skinning the monsters they killed and harvesting pieces from them. They got a bunch of Ochug teeth after I had them roll a survival check, and then later they took those back to town and said, can I make a mace out of this? I said, yeah, that's fine. You can make 2 maces out of this. Instead of saying, oh, Ochug teeth always have these properties, once they got back to town, I said, the blacksmith tells you it's going to take a while to do, because obviously it takes a while to make weapons, so I'll have it ready for you next session. So, you know, in between sessions, I just thought to myself, okay, what would an Ochug do? So the maces did a little bit of extra acid damage when they hit, nothing super crazy, but on a crit, they would always poison their target. So they got the poison debuff effect. So it's just customizing it based on the pieces the players get, rather than saying, I'm going to sit down with a monster manual now and think of every stat that could be applied to every monster forever, both offensively and defensively and in jewelry, and every piece of every monster, which for a dragon would be like the flame sac, the scales, the eye, the claws, the flesh, the bones, the wing membrane. You just had too much to do. Sure, Ori, honestly, why not? What do you do as a character if their goal changes? Change the goal, that's fine. Like, the reason I was part of the current party I'm in, the reason is no longer applicable. You can then change your goal to, I want this party not to die, so I'm sticking with them so they don't die. Or you could say, okay, my character's goal has changed. They wander off to go pursue their new goal, and I'm rolling up a new character. Boom, bam, boom. What was I saying? Oh, right. So anyway, we got really off topic here, but let's revert a bit. Let's back up. I was reading too much of what you guys are saying and getting too distracted, but let's back up a bit. So one thing I've been thinking about is how to gamify this in a way that it facilitates continued play, right? So a problem I have with regular D&D is that economy means nothing. It's unimportant, and it will never, ever be important. Gold is essentially useless. Treasure is useless unless it serves combat directly, because D&D is a game about killing monsters. It is, contrary to popular belief, not about anything but killing monsters. It is not a role-playing game. It is not an economy game. It is not a game that is good at anything it says it's good at other than telling you how you kill monsters. And that's okay. I don't think that's bad. I do think it makes a good backdrop for a role-playing game. And you can make it a role-playing game, but it is first and foremost about killing monsters. So I'm trying to figure out how to work away from that. D&D did start off as a war game. So one thing I think is important is, why are these players doing this? And if it's not because they're the chosen one and the story demands it, Robin Hood, thank you for being an axhole, by the way, then it needs to be something else, which means I need reasons why they're seeking loot and gold and treasure. So one thing I want to do is make economy important. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to have rough resource tracking. Now, I know everybody just said boo. I know you just screamed boo at your computers. A lot of people hate that. They're like, I don't want to track every arrow. I don't want to track every fucking piece of cow's ass that I put in my mouth and how my caloric intake for the day is. But if you abstract it enough, I think it could still be fun, and it could be simple, right? So bear with me for a second. I would never make a ranger track their arrows, and I would never make a wizard determine whether or not they have copper wire fucking 12 like firefly farts and 2 like bear hairs, right? But I will probably be giving my caster characters a resource just called casting components. And the more they cast in a day, the more money they're going to spend back in town to replenish casting components. Now, melee characters are going to have durability. For example, if you roll a crit fail, your weapon will probably take a permanent -1 debuff, not to hit, because missing's not fun. Nobody likes... What the hell just happened? Nobody likes missing, but a permanent -1 debuff to damage until you repair it in town, right? Pojoyson, thank you for 7 months, by the way. But if you can't run out of arrows mid-combat, where's the fun in that? You can run out of arrows, not mid-combat. You can run out of arrows mid or after combat once I track how many arrows you have, right? Davey, thank you for being a bruiser. So in this case, what I mean by that is I will probably track arrows based on the amount of arrows you have for how often you use them, right? So instead of saying you have 50 arrows, I would probably say you have enough arrows for like 3 combats, right? Assuming you use arrows in that combat at all. That is much simpler, much easier to track. It's going to save everybody a lot of time. What if someone ends up with negative arrows as a result of that? Then they're out of arrows. Get fucked. Not really, Patchwork. We're just talking about RPG design, and right now I'm talking about how to make really simple, very abstracted economy so that players have a gold sink. In the third combat, they spam arrow rain. So there's always going to be a way you can work around this, right? Like if a wizard's like, oh, I don't want to burn through all my casting materials. I always use my most powerful spells and I don't bother with any spell slots other than those. And a ranger could always say, I always use arrow rain and I, try to recover my arrows and blah, 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 blah. A fighter could be like, I never use a weapon I care about if I'm worried about a crit fail, or I always carry like 5 weapons on me to replace them. That's fine. Like, if I really want to be a dick, I could get less abstract, but I'm not going to do that. You have to make some sacrifices in exchange for streamlining, in exchange for fun. Nobody wants to track every single arrow they have. That's annoying. I don't mind it, but I know that it makes bad content, and it makes a lot of players really bored out of their fucking mind. What do I think of encumbrance? I would not track encumbrance to the pound. I would probably track encumbrance on a very loose inventory system if I decided to. I haven't decided if I'm going to yet. But basically, I would give every item a value of light, medium, or heavy, and then based on strength thresholds, I would say you could carry like 3 heavy items, or, you know, in regards to 3 heavy items, 6 medium items, or 12 light items, or any combination thereof, right? So you would need 3 light items to make a heavy item, you would need 2 light items to make a medium item, etc., etc., etc. So it'd be more bulk than weight. Exactly, Nick. Well, it shouldn't end up like Breath of the Wild, exactly, where you always end up not using your weapons. I agree, and I don't want to punish players for using the weapons they love, but I do think this, A, creates a way to sink money, and B, creates an important narrative decision, right? So, Soup Time, thank you for being a Ruzader. That's a good profile picture. I don't know what that is. I like that art style. Anyway, I mean, fuck you very much. I hate you. So, I think it creates... I don't want to punish people with permanent debuffs, right? I want to create decision making. I want to create interesting narrative experiences. So if a player gets a -1 damage debuff to their greatsword, there's a higher chance they decide, you know what, actually, just for once, I'm going to use my longsword and shield for this battle. I'm going to switch to those until I get back to town and can repair my greatsword. And it creates this decision where it's like, okay, do I want to take the -1 and deal with that and risk getting a -2 later if I roll another 1? Or do I want to switch weapons? And it means that some players are going to make decisions around the economy system. Like a wizard might be like, okay, I'll take mending so I can repair that temporarily until we get back to town so you don't have to worry about equipment, essentially, which is cool. Are you sure that's Hatsune Miku? It's a good art style either way. Basically, right now, what I'm doing is I am saying that a crit fail is a -1 to the damage on your weapon permanently until you get back to town and repair it with a blacksmith. And a crit against you, like damage to you, is a permanent -1 to your armor. Obviously, this doesn't affect people wearing cloth armor, but people wearing cloth armor are typically going to be burning money on other things like casting material, casting components and things like that. It's a way to force economy so you have a reason to spend gold. I prefer smaller numbers, Alt-4. I think bigger numbers are abstracted and silly. Oh, it's a Pokemon Miku. Oh, okay. Degrading AC is a big deal, exactly. Now, I don't know if I have, I don't know for sure if I'm going to implement any other way to degrade your weapons and armor. I'm assuming crits will be enough. Like, crit fails will be enough to degrade your weapons. Crit damage will be enough to degrade your armor. And hopefully it will encourage people to either bring mending as a ability, or how do you decide prices for things? I haven't yet. I don't know. I'm assuming what I'll do, Stanless Over Heaven, is I'm going to decide prices based on a percentile. So instead of deciding that, like, repairing equipment costs 500 gold or whatever, I will probably say repairing an item with just a -1 debuff on it should take roughly 2% of the average gold adventurers get per adventure. That way, in my brain, I could passively say, it doesn't matter how much money I give them per adventure, I can just track the percentile of what that should cost. Obviously, that's going to change depending on the gear and how many negatives you have on it, etc., but it makes it flexible enough that I don't need to worry about exact numbers. Normal crits or brutals? Probably normal, just the double damage typical. Will I make copper and silver feel important again? Yes. Are there any negative or bad traits introduced to players in HOLOMARCHES? Probably just negative stats. I don't know how I'm going to handle that yet. I'm I kind of want to make them do stat rolling. I know that that is going to leave the door open for characters who are weaker than other characters, but also I expect players to die in this. Death is more frequent in Hollow Marches than a standard D&D campaign. So my current thought is that I'm going to have everybody roll up a main character and at the same time have a backup character. So, yeah. It's still there, Octavio. You're just not going to see it as a starting player because you're too far away from it. You're zoomed in. This is the starting player map, and this is all you get to see. And I'm not telling you nothing else. Oh, like if you cut a slime in half, would it affect the weapon armor? So one thing I really like with monsters I design for myself. Okay, sure. Let's talk about weapon degradation real quick and talk about It's Just a Campaign, Cordyceps channel. Hollow Marches is just going to be a West Marches style campaign using D&D 5e as a setting. At that point, we will probably use D&D 5.5 once the new player handbooks drop, which should be September 17th, depending on when I start the campaign. Okay, moving on. So as far as how I design my monsters, I like to give my monsters interesting weaknesses and workarounds that aren't just HP sponges, right? Like, I really like that trolls regenerate HP unless you hit them with fire damage. I really like that fucking twig blights are exceptionally weak to fire damage. Or some monsters, like water elementals, lose 20 movement speed out of their 30 if you hit them with frost damage. That kind of stuff is fun to me. And I like giving monsters interesting effects on other players too, right? So an acidic slime that automatically gives you a -1 to the damage on your item if you swing through it. Sounds fun to me, unless you're swinging a wooden weapon, right? Okay, let's go to Plow Twist, and absolutely nothing happens of note. I'm on it, Octavio, don't you worry. A lot of this is going over my head as I've only played D&D once and got scared by the information overload, but it's neat to get the DM perspective. Hey, Necronomicon, thank you for 2 whole months of Exceptional. Don't worry too much about it. A lot of it is just talking gameplay design because that's important to me to make sure that the players have an engaging experience. I think D&D sometimes leaves too much up to the DM design-wise. And while that's typically a bad thing, I endeavor to make it designed enough that I fill in those gaps, and the players preferably never notice my hand. They never notice that I'm tweaking things. They just know they're having fun. I did not know that soup time. That's fucking wild. I rolled a 15. A 17. It's going up. Ah, a 6. Never mind. Absolutely, Nick. Would you permit special materials like silver adamantane having slightly different results in this weapon system? So when I was designing my own TTRPG, and I still intend to do this, I was, and I'm going to brag about this to the end of my days, by the way, I always wanted my weapons to have special appellations, essentially the weapon mastery system that D&D now has. I beat them to that. I was way ahead in that design. But in 5.5, they're already doing that for me. So at some point, I'll do a 5.5 review. But essentially what that does is it makes it so every weapon has a special effect you can activate, or is something that happens when you hit an opponent that does something special. For example, hitting with a warhammer gives you the option to like knock them back by 5 feet, or hitting with a sword has a chance to like lower their armor score for a turn, or using like a bill hook could take away the armor value of like their shield or something like that, or stagger them forward by pulling them. I have always believed that weapons should have that no matter what, especially if you have proficiency with that weapon. But I also like unique materials having unique effects on weapons, right? I think that silver, for example, should cut through magic resistance and do extra damage to, you know, demonic creatures or undead creatures. I think that's fun. I think it's more entertaining to, like, pick the right tool for the right job, and it makes it so fighters have more options, and rogues have more options, and rangers have more options, and barbarians have more options, and more thoughts to put into, like, what they're doing in combat, right? One sword for monsters, one sword for men. Exactly. Creating an RPS system, basically. I don't know what you mean by RPS, but yeah, sure. Hi, Ray. Roleplay, welcome in. Oh, rock, paper, scissors. Less rock, paper, scissors and more... So it's not necessarily... So the idea with the rock, paper, scissors system is that it has to be a closed loop, right? It's the fire, water, grass in Pokemon. It's less that and more just knowing the right tool for the right job. It's making sure that everything has an exploitable weakness and that if you use the right thing on the right target, it's going to do more. I think one thing that D&D is really bad about, sorry Wizards of the Coast, you got a great game, I love D&D, is they do not do anything with slashing, piercing, and fucking bludgeoning damage, and I absolutely think like 50% of monsters should have a vulnerability to one of those. Not all of them, but one of them. I feel like if you are a large monster, especially a four-legged large monster that relies on mobility, you should 100% have a vulnerability to piercing damage, no matter what. You should be able to couch a lance or couch a spear or fire an arrow into a monster like that. It should take extra damage from it. If you are a brittle monster or a bone monster or a monster made of some sort of mineral, you should absolutely 100% have a vulnerability to bludgeoning damage. And if you're a fleshy monster with no armor on or a humanoid, slashing damage should do extra damage to you. Would the player know properly if their weapon is the right choice against the monster after they swung it? If they were inferring and thinking about it, yes. If they thought about it, yes. If you use your logic and think, okay, well, this is basically a giant bull, my spear should probably hurt this pretty bad, yes. My sword's probably not going to cut that deep into something like this. Have I dealt with people leaving and joining mid-campaign? Yep. Never been a problem, really. Well, Smoople, the defense against that for me is that since there are very few monsters with weaknesses and resistances, I add my own. You can't look that up because it's me. I'm deciding that. And also, I make a lot of my own monsters, so you can't look that up either. I decide that. See you, Raven. Like looking at a giant hippo and going, man, I wonder if daggers are good for this. Exactly. No one would ever be so stupid as to use daggers against the giant quillboar hippo. That would be stupid. How do you deal with players using knowledge they have? Like, I might not know how to make gunpowder, but my character... I might not know how to make gunpowder, but my character... Oh, you might know how to make gunpowder, but my character probably doesn't. I would say try your best not to use knowledge your character doesn't have, but if it's like in-world knowledge, I don't care that much. If the players really want to like be fucking min-maxing sweat lords and they want to try to compete with me, I'm the DM. You can't win that battle. It's a stupid battle, and I'll punish you for it if I've got to. Like, if you're like, oh, okay, actually, DM, I checked this up, and this particular dragon is weak to, binding magic. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Go ahead and try that. Oh, fuck, I didn't tell you. This is actually, this dragon has a reflective scale enchantment. You bound yourself. You're actually currently bound. You just use hold person on yourself, or hold monster, and it worked on yourself. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny how that worked? I'm just kidding. That's a bad example, because you shouldn't punish players for using regular spells. But if they really want to get min-maxy, you can't beat the DM at that. It's just not going to happen. Miss Dragon, ouchies. I would pay to see a session where it's just you going against min-maxing. They'd have a bad time. Exactly. You're basically going against God. Like, if you want to min-max, that's fine. But if you want to be a petty little bitch about it, I'm not going to punish you for making a good character. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's nice to do to players. It's okay if your joy in D&D is making a well-oiled character that you want to be efficient at what they do. That's super cool. If your joy in D&D is being an asshole and trying to outsmart the DM, that's never going to happen, and you're a fucking idiot for that. How do you deal with players that flirt with everything? Make them suffer the consequences of their action, I guess. But JRPGs taught me that God is the final boss to beat. Oh, fair. What What about if a player wants to go back to using their old character after finding out they don't really like the new one they made? Depends on how their character left. If their character died, I mean, your character's dead, sorry. You can make another character that's the same class if you want. But if your character just left the party, that's fine. Cycle out, cycle in. It's fucking Kratos, Orion, stepping back in after you get rid of, what's his name? Fucking Zealous Wilder, right? That sounds super cool, Mume. That sounds fun as fuck. Also, thank you for 4 months. I heard a quote recently as the DM contrivance is your native tongue. Yeah. Huh. Is it possible to have a campaign where there's only one player but 5 DMs? I guess. Like, DMing all at the same time? That'd be really weird, but you could probably make it work. Wind Strike, thanks for being a Ruzader. Bye, Blade Brent. I don't know what the Lady of Pain is, Kungasi. So, maybe. Do you have any tips on how you start building a character? As far as I'm aware personally, there's 2 ways to approach building characters. There's goofy, cool mechanics that you want to do. And then there's a character you want to make that's all about flavor and then building around that. As a new player, start with flavor, build around that. If you want to build like a, I don't know, like a silly little scholar who holes up inside of her like fucking tower all day and all night and is ignorant to the world, you know, roll low, purposely give yourself low wisdom, give yourself high intelligence, focus on some spells that might be kind of not as useful in combat because you were using them to like survive in your tower or to clean up around the place or for utility, you know, stuff like that. Have I talked about the gods in my world? No, because there are no canonical gods in my world. There are gods of every society. Every society has their own pantheon, and I'll be working on that shortly. But as far as actual overarching gods, think of it more like Warhammer 40k's Winds of Magic system. The gods exist, but the players will never, ever interact with them in their truest form. Is it bad to have too many DMs? Only if they don't communicate well. Kagas says, some players have tried to make characters that could beat her when canonically, if her shadow passes over you, you die from being flayed alive. Oh. I mean, go for it if you think you can beat it, but I doubt it. How would you make the blandest of fighter McFighters and combat spec characters interesting in RP-centric sessions? So, Cetographer, the best way to do that, I think, would be to figure out how your fighter interfaces with the players alongside them. So, for example, if your fighter is somebody who's only focused on combat, what does that say about them as a person? Like, do they have inadequacies or fallacies as a, like, functioning member of society because they focus their entire life around learning how to kill things, right? So for me, I would probably write that as a previous captain of the guard who retired but then came back to arms because somebody important to him was missing or something important to him was missing. Maybe even like a Kratos God of War type character, right? Like, let's imagine a Kratos God of War type character and imagine his son was kidnapped or taken or went missing. Maybe his son also joined the military to be like dad. And this retired like captain of the guard or war general was like, fuck, I gotta get back out my old fucking sword. And he's level 1 because he's not been doing that for a long time, right? Kratos, whatever the fuck you want to call him. But he's also not good at socializing. He's not necessarily the smartest guy. He's probably a little war weary, but he is very, very dangerous. I think that would be a cool way to play that type of character, right? But you could also play a character who is like some fucking, I don't know, sweaty NEET who never left his room and only studied the blade and gets super anxious in social situations, but is exceptionally dangerous in combat. That could be a fun character. Father of boy, if you would. Yeah. Bye, Poulette. Yeah, kind of like the fantasy equivalent of a doomsday prepper. While you were learning how to riz people, I was studying the blade. See you later, Windstrike. Good luck. Hey, writing a book, nice. Thanks, Omdis. All right, so what were we talking about? We were talking about economy. What are other ways I could fund economy? So one thing I've been kind of flirting with is the idea of a gold sink. I don't ever want gold expenditure to feel like it's a tax for existing, right? So, for example, I could argue, oh, you spend a ton of gold every time you go back to town because you have to eat and you have to sleep and you need room and you need board. And while I do think those things will probably cost some level of money, I don't want to get into a situation where, one, they have no money and they're stuck in an infinite loop of being unable to rest in town, and then they have no economy, and then they can't go out because they're not rested, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to do that. But two, I don't want it to feel punishing, like there's just a pointless tax there that doesn't do anything just to drain gold. I want gold to mean something. So I'm tossing around the idea that the central conceit of them existing at all is that they are, and bear with me for a moment. How do I explain this? Okay, so in a West Marches campaign, you need a reason why. Really in any campaign, but especially in West Marches, you need a reason why these people are out here, right? Why is your player group willing to go out into the wilderness that nobody else is willing to go out into, explore these dangerous areas, fight these dangerous monsters? What is the reasoning behind that? And usually it's not very sane people that do that, or it's people that have some goal or desire or are seeking upward mobility in a society in some way, whether that be money or fame or something else, right? So I think a common trope that you can go off of is they're just adventurers in an adventurers guild, and that's fine. My thought is this. Octavio, are you still here? 1 second, I've got something to say, but I don't want Octavio to hear it. See you later, Iris. Okay, I don't think he's here. Fuck! Oh no, Jorb. Okay, it was Jorb. Woo! Alright, so check this out. My idea is that they are part of is that mercenaries are relatively common in this world. That mercenary groups and mercenary companies are more or less the only people that are like out there risking their fucking stupid ass hides, going out and fighting these monsters and exploring this frontier, and exiting the safety of, you know, walled cities. The reason being that mercenary companies are often populated by people who have no other choice, are either criminals, or were given the opportunity to join that company, or die, or be sent to prison, or are people who just don't have any other talents other than killing things. So there's a lot of reasons you would join a mercenary company, but most of them probably aren't great. And the central conceit, the central narrative, I think, of this campaign is that the HOLOSTARS boys that are going to be playing originally, and here's a spoiler, but it's okay. It's okay if they hear this, I guess, but try not to take it to them. I don't want to ruin it. Is that they were part of a relatively well-renowned mercenary company, and then either got sold out or their leader was somehow discredited or incriminated in something, and either made a run for it or was actively working against, you know, a local king or a local constabulary, right? So somehow they are disenfranchised and forced to start a brand new startup mercenary company with no acclaim, no legacy, and some level of side eye from the locals because they were part of this criminal mercenary gang, essentially. Isn't that Armis lore? Not really. No. We're bounty hunters. So the reason I want to do that is because it forces them into a life they already had. It still forces them to be mercenaries. You still have to write up a character that's willing to go out into the wilderness and die because they probably don't have any other choice. However, They also don't have any resources or connections or acclaim. They don't know the area super well because they were essentially just foot soldiers who were brought here by their previous captain. And they are now kind of out on their ass and starting a brand new mercenary company. And this serves a money sink because it means I can develop economy around increasing their mercenary size, right? Maybe eventually they could start working on an actual city or working on their own keep. Maybe they get a barony. Maybe they could put money into like hiring their own peasantry and their own workers and their own blacksmiths and things like that. Will they be starting at level 1? I don't know yet. I haven't decided. It's either 1 or 3. I haven't decided yet. What I'm saying is they got scammed. Yes, they got scammed. Do you guys decide together on Armis lore? Armis lore is what it is. What do you mean? Whatever happens to us is our lore. That's just called history. That's our memories. So they get sponsored eventually, probably, yes. Depending on the work that they do, they might get sponsored. Now, I don't want to railroad them and say they have to, but that is a potential that I'm leaving open. I'm not saying there's any one nation or country or government that would sponsor them, but it's possible. Is Marches its own game? No. So West Marches is a style of game that uses D&D as a baseline. No, I guess it doesn't have to use D&D. Do you prefer EXP numbers when playing, or do you prefer more milestone? I prefer milestone. I am considering using gold spent as EXP in this session. I am considering the idea that spending gold is how you accumulate EXP, and certain gold thresholds decide your levels. I'm also tossing around the idea that players are totally fine to be different levels, because eventually somebody's going to die, and I don't know if I want them to roll a level 1 character or not, but if I do have them roll a level 1 character, it could create this really interesting situation where you have these sort of storied veteran mercenaries in the company, and then new people who kind of catch up in levels, because obviously you'll level exponentially faster adventuring with higher level players, but you'll be lower level, so you'll struggle to, you know, survive these fights. But if you do survive them, big reward. I'm debating. Spending gold and downtime to level up, I'm considering it. Money spent, not earned? Man, dragons must be underleveled. Yup. But it also forces economy again, Cetographer. If I force them to want to spend their gold but feel rewarded for spending it, it means gold is suddenly a super valuable resource. If it's just gold earned, they're just going to want to sit on it, and it still feels pointless. It feels as pointless as I got 20 XP. That's not fun. But I spent 20 gold means you get an item or a service or something out of it, and you're progressing your character in a way that feels meaningful. Are you going to use carousing rules? I don't know that. What about raising starting level as their base? Oh, that's clever. I like that. So you're saying like the higher the reputation of the actual mercenary company they found, the higher the base starting level of whoever joins, because they're more reputable, so stronger people would want to come with them. I could see that. That could be fun. Could you not enforce ingredient requirements to drive commerce? So we talked about that a little bit earlier, Mirren. I'm not going to force ingredient requirements, but I will enforce spell components, which is to say I'm not going to force them to buy specifically like 12 fly butts and 20 feet of copper wire and a unicorn's hoof dust. But I am going to say you need spell components to cast, which is an arbitrary, abstract resource. Do the mercenaries still do adventure requests? Yep. So as far as ranged ammunition, I'm going to abstract that as well. I'm going to track ammunition on a per combat basis. Basically, if you fire a bolt or an arrow in combat, it counts as using a combat's worth of that ammunition. You can use as much as you want in that combat, but you have used a combat's worth of ammunition. I know this is very abstract. This is not realistic. And you can be like, oh, but in this fight, I fired 50 arrows, and in the last fight, I fired 1. Why is it the same amount of ammo? Because I am vaguely tracking the amount of ammo you use for your entire adventuring day, and that way you don't have to track every arrow, because nobody wants to fucking do that. Is there mercenary base building mechanics? I'll figure it out, but yeah, I'm gonna try. Can chat request adventures? I think that'd be fun. Sure, I could figure that out. Maybe I could make it like a membership thing. This almost sounds like as a DM you're playing a management game. Sort of, yeah. Stamina system's possible, but I don't think I would tie it to actions. I think I would tie it to how long they could be out adventuring. Can the Ruzeators, or sorry, can chat become an NPC in the base? Probably not, but every single name on this map and on the main map, which has like fucking, I don't know, 40 names on it, all of those are pulled from the Wheel of Axles. So, as always, if you're an Axle, I'll put you on the wheel of random names. I'll spin it, I'll take your name, and I will fantasy it in some way. For example, Marianne was just Marianne, but Gonzalin, I believe, came from somebody named Gonzala. This came from somebody named Lilygrove specifically. There's a town called Plow Twist down in the southwest that was from somebody named Plot Twist. Fucking Torin was named after somebody named Tori, I think, and we just added an N to make it sound more dwarven. Dwarven. Am I on the wheel from a while back? So I refresh it every month, so I'm not sure. If you're an Axel this month, probably. Shout out to Ashley. Yeah, Ashley. So I'll be naming NPCs the same way. Probably not NPCs I make up on the fly during a session, but important, like, NPCs that exist consistently, like the King of Fiosi, or Queen of Fiosi, depending on what we do. You know, the rulers of Torin. I will probably name those all after Axles. Named NPC from the Axles wheel list, if that wasn't clear? Yes, yeah. True, Vevictus. Axel and above, or do I need to downgrade? That would be pretty shitty of me to be like, oh no, you paid, actually, you supported me too much. You bought too many groceries. Downgrade. No, Axel and above. It's everybody Axel and up. Good question, Cetographer. I haven't really thought about it, but I think that'd be fun to do. It would have been funny. That's true. Stamina potion. Anyway, that's what I've been thinking about, is economy, quest lines, major villains and major villain arcs, because I think that even though this is air quotes sandbox and open world, not having some sort of antagonistic force that you keep vague track of is lame and doesn't give you a good narrative. Are the main bosses references to something, or is that a spoiler? Not really. Just whatever I think sounds interesting as narrative arcs. I would give you I really want to tell you about, I can't. I'm not going to tell you. I want to tell you about a character that is a major villain, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. But it's cool. I like it. Let me date a villain? No. True, Australiello. Not gonna spoil it. I'm not gonna spoil it. It would be lame. Have I heard of Dungeon Alchemist? It's an AI-powered dungeon generator with options to customize specific maps to your liking. Maybe it could offer extra immersion for everyone. I don't think it has the amount of diversity that I feel like I would need. I've looked into it a few times, and it always feels a little bit limited, which isn't a bad thing. I understand why. It just doesn't seem like my type of thing. Oh, don't you worry, Vevictus. You better believe the old mercenary captain is definitely going to be an antagonist of some sort. Not because he really gives a shit about the player characters, I don't think, but I imagine when the player characters realize what he got for selling them out and or abandoning them, they'll probably have a little bit of a bone to pick with him. Don't know, Nick. I have not made that decision yet. Also, it largely depends on how comfortable everybody else is with that. So, you know, it's up in the air. Yes, see Joe Crux. Villains will progress in their personal stories whether players interact with them or not, because I very much believe in a world that is living and breathing, and I even in regular D&D, Hollow Marches aside, or West Marches aside, I do not like stagnant villains that wait around for the player to do something as if they are the chosen one. I know a lot of players like feeling like the main character, and you are the main focus of the narrative. That does not mean you're the only character in the world. That does not mean you're the only one with shit going on, and if you choose not to do anything, well, fuck you, I guess. Good question, Blaze. Depends on the villains. There's a lot of villains. It's not just one villain. Would I want to commission art for the... Oh. So here's a grim reality that maybe you don't want to hear, that maybe most people don't want to hear. There is every possibility and realistic opportunity that this is a bunch of wasted effort and nobody gives a shit about this and nobody wants to watch this and it is a complete flop of content and maybe the other boys get bored of it or aren't engaged with it or it just doesn't entertain them enough to stick around with it and it all tanks. So if that doesn't happen and it turns out to be entertaining and fun and you guys have fun with it and the boys have fun with it and I have fun with it, then yes, I would see doing something like that. But if it's something that, you know, ends up being like a ton of like work that I put in and it kind of just sails down, I'm fine with that. I can always recycle it. It's cool. I can always use that for other campaigns in the future. But no, I don't see myself commissioning any art of it in that case. It's not like, I don't think it's harsh because like it would be harsh if I don't feel any I don't feel like the boys hold any responsibility in this. I don't feel like you guys hold any responsibility in this. There's nothing I would hate more than you guys just watching out of conciliation or trying to make me feel good. If it's not entertaining to watch, I don't want you to watch it. And if it's not entertaining to play, I don't want the boys to play. So if that ends up being the case, it's okay that that kind of falls by the wayside. That's just reality. That's not harsh. That's not their fault. Nobody's wrong. It's not your fault. If you're not entertained or they're not entertained, that's how it is. And that's okay. But I would love if it was super fun and everybody enjoyed it. That would be very ideal. Can I put some stuff out there for fan art? Not yet, because if I reveal... Most of these villains are very ambiguous at first. They don't just run into town and say, hey, fuck you, adventurers, we're going to fight you. It's going to be plot hooks that slowly lead up to those villains because the villains don't know the players exist and don't give a fuck. The only villain you're probably going to know about right off the bat is probably the mercenary captain, if he is even really a villain. It's more like these villains are doing bad things. The players are going to catch on to the bad things because they're going to be doing quests that actively oppose the villain's goals. By extension, and that will lead them to the villains, right? See you later, Roses. Hey, if that goes south, though, module as merch, perhaps? I could release it as a module as merch if I separated it from the D&D IP. If I made it so it was completely roleplay and made it completely customizable to any setting. Yes, maybe. Everyone knows that the true villains are the player character. True, Hyper Epsilon. You're very right. You are the soup. Mikuru-chan, thank you for 5 months, by the way. Says, Ruze, your streams, especially your hella niche streams, are so amazing that I would not be here watching stream at midnight if I was not entertained. Not entertained. I love your streams. Thank you. I try my best, even if this one is very, very, very unplanned and very, very just random yapping for the sake of random yapping with nothing really going on here other than, I don't know if I said this for people who just got here. This is going to be the player map starting out. This is what they see. Obviously, there's more zooming out we can do as they adventure, but this is what they start with no markers for any cities other than cities they have already been through. I imagine the mercenary captain rode them through Lily Grove by the lake, up past Fios, down the Jailoril River, all the way down to Gonzalin, which is where they make their home currently. And of course, they know of St. Marianne's on the Hill, because St. Marianne's on the Hill is the monastery on the hill across the river. There will, of course, be something in place to counter murder hoboing, which is the guards. The guards doing their job. Do you use your art tag for Hollow Marches, or do you have a specific hashtag for it? I actually have a hashtag. I believe it is on my schedule right now. It's hashtag Hollow Marches. Or is it hashtag Hollow March? No, it's hashtag Hollow Marches. That's good patchwork. I'm glad. Six fucking years, Ori? Holy shit. Congrats. That sounds awesome. Yes, Zenard. I believe that is it. Yep. I usually capitalize the H and the M, but you do you. What is the base time to travel across one hex in this map? So I assume each hex is roughly 12 miles. So in a day, you could travel 3 hexes. So for example, if you were in Gonzalin, you could say 12 miles, 24 miles, 36 miles, you end in this hex, right? Now, if it's difficult terrain, like swamps, those cost 2. This is about to get really mathy. I'm so fucking sorry, gamers. Those cost 2 to enter, but you can always enter a hex as long as you have at least 1 remaining, right? So, for example, if I started right here, and I said I want to go into the swamp, I would go 1, 2, but I have 1 left, so I could still enter this even though it costs 2 to enter, right? However, if I said I want to enter this swamp and then enter this swamp, you would think, oh, well, I still have 2 left. I can go out to here, right? No, because you entered this swamp, which costs 2. So if I start here and I go 1, 2, I can only enter here because I only have 1 left, right? That's on foot. Mounted, you can go 6. So mounted, you could be like, oh, okay, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Boom. Rough terrain is terrain that would be really difficult to cross that isn't like open fields or desert. So terrain like super heavily forested areas like over here, or swampy areas like up here. Crossing a river probably eats up difficult terrain, obviously. And that's assuming you could even cross the river without specific crossing points. Does falling roads give a movement speed bonus? Yes. So just off screen here, you can't see it, but right here is Theos. So you would assume the fastest path from Theos would be to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? And you would technically be right, but rather than doing that, if you travel down the road, each road only eats up half, essentially, which is, to make it simpler, I just say you can move 1 extra after stepping on a road. So if you step onto a road, you get 1 free movement off of that road. So leaving Theos, you can say I go 1 free movement, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So instead of making it using 11 squares, you would have made it with 9 squares, meaning it's a 3-day journey. If you take the road first and then skirt around the difficult terrain of the swamp, right? What if the boys invest in building new roads? Great. When they have the economy to start hiring road diggers, then they could do that. Like, they'd have to dig it out and then probably, not cobblestone it, they'd probably have to at least, like, you know, flatten it and pad it. Sounds inspired by Civilization? Kinda, yeah. I think I subconsciously did that. Not that I've played a lot of Civ, but I did play Civ 5 and Civ 6. Hi, Mocha. Good luck at the hospital. I hope everything's all right. Do paved roads make a difference or just dirt? I think roads are just roads. It's fine. So a road through rough terrain would be 1 to 2, free 3. I think a road through rough terrain would simply be a road through rough terrain. It would probably cost more to build a road in rough terrain once you're starting to do that as a gold sink, but it would essentially work as a regular road because there's no reason a road in rough terrain should function any differently than a road in smooth terrain. So it's still the, like, free movement you get, right? So if you would travel 3 on roads, you would actually travel 6 on roads. So a day's journey on road would give you 6 squares, or 6 hexes. Not even a single second Pogger and Reel, not even with the cursed shit I say sometimes. You're telling me after 7 months of listening to me yap like an asshole, not 1 second of it has made you go, ah, fuck, I wish I didn't have ears right now. Would traveling by river or boat work? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got like specific boatmen as a culture, like the lizardmen of the northern town up here. I believe it's not Iwashi. What's the northern town lizardman name? Fuck, I don't remember. But the lizardmen, the river lords, they travel the rivers willingly. They boat up and down the rivers. They are tradesmen and, by and large, responsible for a lot of trade between Gonzalin and Theos because they're masters of this river. It's stalling extra years for twice the rambling. You fool. You know not what you've done, Mr. Vieg. But thanks for 7 months. Are carriages are faster? Probably less slow. I mean, carriages are probably going to be about the same as going on a horse, I imagine. It's the same. I know that's technically slower because they're dragging a carriage, but if you have like 2 to 4 horses, I mean, it'll equal out. If there was a moment like that I've forgotten, I've been doing campaigns since the early 2000s, so 6 years isn't that long. Wow. First got into TTRPGs when 2E first came out. Whoa, that's fucking awesome. I played 2E once with my oldest sister because her friend was handed down the 2E books by his dad. So that was cool. It was a cool system. I liked it all right. I don't remember a lot about it. I was pretty young, but it was fun. I wish I had played more D&D as a kid, but it always like seemed like this mystical fucking pastime that, you know, the cool older nerds got to play in their basements and I would never get to experience. And if I'm being fair with myself, I really didn't until I was out of the house. I was basically an adult by the time I got to play D&D. I played 3 sessions of 2E with my eldest sister and her friend, and that's the only D&D I ever experienced as a child, which always makes me sad because I watch things like Stranger Things. I'm like, man, I wish I had that. Fuck. Gamarski, thanks for being a Ruzader. But hey, it's cool. I get to be as much of a nerd as I want to be now, so. Boo! Your mom sucks in cart. Mm-hmm. Two-hit armor class. We're not going to talk about the hit armor class. We're not talking about Thaco. Thaco's gone for a reason. We're done with that forever. One thing I really want to do at some point is I want to drop into a West Marches style drop-in, drop-out campaign on Roll20 and just kind of play around and see how it feels. I'll probably do that on one of my days. I'm taking off here shortly. So I guess if you're running a West Marches campaign on Roll20, keep an eye out. I might be there. I won't tell you who I am, though. I won't let you know. It'll be a secret. I'll be there under an alias like Red... twos. You'll be like, who? But I want to just see how other people are running it, just to check. I don't want to let it influence me too much, but I am curious. I try to like make my own stuff in a vacuum and not be too influenced by other creators, especially in TTRPGs, because I feel like it's too easy to rely on what came before, and that's how you kind of get locked into stagnant systems. Very stealthy. Are you adding massive damage and wounds? I considered it for a while, but no, I don't think so. I personally like that really gritty style of play, but I don't think it's conducive to super entertaining gameplay. And I think that if I do that, what I realistically run the risk of is somebody who's not as into that as me, like one of the other boys who's not as into that as me, gets hit, fucking loses an arm or something. It's like, actually, I don't want to play this character anymore. I jump in the nearest spike pit. And that would not be fun. No one wants to do that. No one wants to deal with that. Yukiki says, going to be DMing next week for the first time, playing Hekna. Anything for a first timer running a campaign from a book? I've never run a campaign out of a book, but I would say don't be afraid of making your own. Don't be afraid to really focus in and replace characters and replace monsters and replace items as needed for whatever's entertaining to you and your players. Hell yeah, Cosmic Afro, let's go! March Mayhem says, wait, if this is West Marches, can you open it to people outside of Armus? Yeah, I'm gonna. It's gonna be open to all the HoloStars at the start. I don't know how far I'm gonna open it. It depends on how many HoloStars take an interest. So all the HOLOSTARS-EN boys are gonna be our starting players. Anybody who's interested, obviously. I mean, somebody might say no. I don't know how interested everybody is in TTRPGs as a whole. I mean, for all I fucking know, maybe Flayon's like, actually, that sounds incredibly tedious. I'm not interested. And that's fine. No judgment there. But if enough players are not interested or fall off within like a month, I will probably consider opening the gates to a couple indies that I think have expressed interest in that. And we'll see where it goes from there. Snin says, thanks for giving your cats treats on my behalf the other day. It's hot today, so I got some ice cream for Ruze and everyone else. Whoa! I had to go to work, so eat this and hang in there. Itadakimasu. Itadakimasu. Arigatou gozaimasu. Donna. But yeah, that's where I'm at so far with player count. But we'll see. I mean, it'll develop as it develops. I'm not super fucking pressed, honestly. I really don't care that much. I don't have like any... I'm not like fucking setting any hard boundaries of, no, Jimmy down the street can't play because Jimmy down the street is ugly and stupid and dumb and I hate him and he needs to give me $200. I don't have any like hard set things other than I want the HOLOSTARS-EN boys to play. I would love to get some of the JP boys in. That is probably my only other thing I would like to do, but I would really I'd have to work hard at developing my Japanese enough to be, I want to get them in, but I don't think I have good enough Japanese, nor do I think it will be good enough within like 2 years to ever roleplay in an eloquent enough way that I felt doing it. I felt good doing it. I feel like I would be fucking them over no matter what I did. But maybe I could find somebody who's fluent in Japanese and have them DM alongside me. Maybe they could be the second DM for the campaign. But then again, I'm a kind of a control freak, so giving over DMing power to somebody else seems hard to me. Maybe. I don't know yet. I don't know. Probably not Axel. I don't think Axel would want to DM, nor do I think he would read the notes I'd be writing about what's happening with the other players. Are co-DMs a thing? Typically, no, but in Hollow March or West Marches, sometimes. Well, that's future me's problem. I have no hard, fast plans about that yet. Ideally, I would learn enough Japanese to be able to do it myself, but we'll see, so... Maybe if I trust somebody enough, they could just handle the JP side themselves. So I don't really know anybody that well. I I mean, I know a lot of the HOLOSTARS-EN boys well, and I really like my JP senpais, but I don't know them that well. But anyway, too early to think that far out. You'd come back and all the roofs would just be gone, all your buildings. Yeah, Axel would definitely just make a city where it's like, there's no roofs. There's no roofs. Sorry. Not a chance. One step at a time. Petition to name the mercenary captain Brimstone Bruze? Absolutely not. Though that is a fucking hilarious name. Maybe I'll have some shitty NPC who dies in like one scene named Brimstone Bruze. That would be funny. But taking a major character and naming it after myself, that ain't it. I'll do a character named Brimstone Bruze, and I'll have the voice that everybody tries to do when they're like, I could do a perfect Ruze impression. And it's always like, hey everybody, my name's Crimzon Rulez. Welcome into the... And I'll have them sound like that. It'll be great. Whose voice is that? Every single person that's ever said, I could do a perfect Ruze voice. Every time. That's what they sound like. It never changes. Oh my god, he sounds just like Ruze. I'm not gonna lie to you, motherfuckers. I have actively seen other HOLOSTARs say I could do a perfect Ruze, and they'll be like, hey everybody, my name's Crimzon Rulez. And then fucking chat will be like, oh my god, that's so perfect. And I'm sitting there in chat like, pardon? Is it though? But I don't want to be a dick, so I just leave it alone. Probably, yeah. Yeah. Axel would drop a Terrask on somebody. It's like there's two Ruzes in this room. What the fuck? You know who else plays TTRPGs? My mom! Hey, what's up, Win? Welcome in. Hi. So, I do want to work on more HOLOMARCHES stuff, but I'm trying to think about if there's anything I can work on while you guys are here. No, I'm not going to work on your mom. Not right now. That's for later. I know, my voice isn't even that deep. I mean, it's like garbled or whatever, I guess. I don't know. It's like it's got Frey. I like talk with like a fucking Valley girl Frey or whatever, or sorry, an alt goth girl Frey, but it's not deep. It's just frayed. Anyway, whatever. We're not talking about that. I don't care. Sound like you eat gravel daily? Well, I do, but stream DMs ask for names to use later when necessary. Well, I've already got a list of names on the Axel wheel, so I can't really use that. I mean, I could just like take all of those names and start bastardizing them for funsies to make a list of names. But I'm trying to think about something I could do with the world itself. I want to flesh out some of the quests, but I don't want to do... I feel like if I start doing that on stream, it's going to spoil where the narrative leads to and then spoil the villains, which I don't want to do because I want their first introduction to be cool when they get introduced. Any more armor designs I'd like to share? I haven't done any yet. I do need to work on some of the cultural, like, aesthetics for some of these societies, so I guess I could do that. Well, then I'd have to plug in the tablet and get everything... What's the level of tech in this world? Their airships? Nope. Gunpowder is just now coming into fruition down with the dwarves here in the swamp. They've got it like a little peat moss swamp, and they've got a bunch of bat guano, and they've just now developed gunpowder in a very, very early, very loose form. They have very crude, very, very crude gunpowder rifles. Like the kind you still have to pack in, you know what I mean? Like dump the powder in the barrel, put the bullet down on top with the tamped cloth, then tamp it down, and then fire that type of shit. I'm talking early gunpowder. St. Mary Anne's is a temple by what I guess is a heavily trafficked stream. So I guess you could have a lot of religious pilgrims pass through, and the temple earns a lot of coin from those. So St. Mary Anne's is a temple that practices the religion that is common in Theos. They are largely Theosian, which Gonzalin is also a Theosian town, technically, or Theosi town. I don't know if I like Theosi or Theosian. A Theosi town? Anyway, it's a Theosi town, and the religion that is practiced in Theos is very anti-technological progress because they believe that people who are supposed to have power were born with the ability to cast magic, and if you don't have that, you're not supposed to be able to wield the ability to kill somebody by pointing a stick at them and clicking a button. So they don't much like the dwarves down here in the southeast, but the dwarves are important trading partners, so they tolerate them, but they have a heavy, sort of inquisitorial level of, religious militants here stationed at the cloister in St. Mary Anne's, and they regularly run inspections here in Gonzalin to make sure gunpowder is not being traded. Do they also hate crossbows? Probably not. Okay, Costa Rinks, I haven't decided yet. Maybe. It depends on when their religion was founded and what level of tech was there when they started being kind of anti-progress. Is there a rough layout of the towns? Not yet. Is there a pope or a bishop figure from afar that they answer to? No, but they do answer to their sorcerer king and or queen. I haven't decided yet. They answer to their king and or queen, who is a caster. I neglected to mention this, but this is going to be a relatively low magic setting. Now, I know that's antithetical to D&D 5e. There are wizards who can cast spells, but they are very rare, obviously. And in Theosi culture, they are immediately seen as superior to, your average people. However, much like society typically does, wizards are almost only ever drawn from magical people who come from more noble or higher class families, or at best wealthy merchant families. Wizards who come from poorer families are often kind of looked down upon as dangerous. In some cases, they, air quotes, disappear unless they are early on indoctrinated into their little wizard academy. Now, the setting is low magic because it's exceptionally rare to be born with the ability to do magic. Unlike in regular D&D, you cannot just learn magic. If you are not born innately connected to magic, you cannot become a wizard. It just does not happen. There is no level of learning that will help you with it. You have to be born with the ability to use magic. If you are untrained in magic and you are born with a high volume of magic, that's how sorcerers come about. If you want to do magic but weren't born with the ability to do magic, that's how warlocks come about. And if you are born with the ability to do magic and get personal, diligent training in a school setting and learn to channel it, air quotes, correctly, that's wizards. Low magic, so not much dragons, unless they have blended. So low magic for society, not low magic for the world. I will be explaining most creatures through biology, at least my own crafted creatures, but some creatures are inherently magic. It's just they are looked upon with fear and some level of mysticism, right? So dragons are rare, very, very, very rare, but they do exist. True, Salahuddin. What about divine magic? Divine magic is a little tougher. I'm still deciding how I feel about that. Since gods are a very loose concept, I think divine magic is similar. Like, it's essentially something you still have to learn, and you just learn it in a church rather than in a school of, like, witchcraft and wizardry or whatever. Mirren, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Yum, 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 yum. So divine magic is something that you're probably not going to like hearing this either, but divine magic is just regular magic in this setting, at least in this world. It's another school of magic, essentially. But the clergy, of course, does not believe this. Someone else mentioned bards. Bards are the equivalent of sorcerers. They're people who were born with the ability to use magic, never got their formal training, and learned it themselves. Divine magic equals magic with extra steps? Yeah, kinda. So are druids closer to wizards or warlocks? Druids are closer to sorcerers in a lot of ways. Anybody that's not classically trained is considered a sorcerer, like, by society, but class-wise, druid and cleric druid and sorcerer are, of course, separated, and not the same thing. But society would probably call a druid a sorcerer, at least the Fiozi society. Like type A and type B magic. So, Gabarsky, there's multiple schools of magic, right? Just like in D&D, there's 8 schools of magic for your classic wizards, though I guess there's technically more than that now. And then clerics obviously have cleric domains. Clerics in this setting are just tapping into those 8 schools of magic and don't know it. Technically, divine magic itself is probably the same school as, like, the school of fire or light, but it depends. What about demons and devils? Demons and devils, I'm still debating, Ploy W. Because of the nature of gods in this setting and how they are largely abstracted from the world itself and don't take an active role in society, demons and devils have to also be changed in how they exist and why they exist. I believe in a demon, I worship a demon, and believe the demon is a god. Is it still divine magic? Only if it gives you magic. But I mean, it depends on if you're able to actually extract magic from that being. If not, no. What are bards like in this world? They're sorcerers. They're typically self-taught sorcerers that channel their magic through word or music or song or in some way in a more abstracted way than sorcerers themselves, right? They're essentially sorcerers that probably didn't realize they could do magic until it kind of just happened while playing music or through oration or through spoken poetry or something like that. They basically realized they could do magic accidentally, much like most sorcerers do. Yes, Dusk, essentially. So they use art as a crutch. I would say they use art more as a focus than a crutch. It's not that they're leaning on it, it's how they learn to channel their magic without actually learning to channel magic the way a wizard would. What's the possibility of Hollow Earth or underground empires? Very high, since the dwarves live underground. Oops, I did it again. And then someone explodes. Would artificers exist in this world as something like rune mages? I would say artificers, if I allow them, and I think I'm going to since I've allowed guns already, would probably exist in this world as a side school of magic. They are essentially just wizards that are trained in a similar way with a different art. Now, it might depend on who develops artificers first. It would probably be the Tauren dwarves of the swamp down in the southeast. Artificer if he allows them. My class! Listen, Blaze, I'm pretty anti-artificer in its traditional sense. I would definitely be editing that class quite a bit if I put it in. I do not like mixing tech and magic. I do not think it's super fun. I do not think it's engaging. I think it is, if anything, trying to dip into too many soups all at once. Also, think of it as soup jacks. My problem with Artificer is the same problem I have with Final Fantasy XIV, and it is that it feels like the designers cannot figure out if they want to do fantasy or sci-fi, and they squeeze them all together as hard as they can and say, that's fine, that's good enough. What happens if a sorcerer joins a wizard school? Oh, I guess they could become a wizard eventually. Magic's just technology unexplained. I mean, yes, sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, true. Are lakes and seas pretty mundane, or are they filled with horrible eldritch gribblies? It depends on the lake. But yeah, I'm sure there's some sort of horrible monstrosities in there. What about monks in your world? Probably rare, but they exist. I would hate Dawn Trail. I saw Dawn Trail's trailer and I said, haha, yeah, nah, I'm good. You'd hate Final Fantasy VI? Listen, I don't even like the level of technology in Final Fantasy VII. So, yeah, I probably would. I don't think it's bad. I think you can make tech and fantasy work together. I just don't like it. It is not my flavor. I do not believe you can justify a setting where something like a gun blade or a Gatling gun arm makes sense while people are wielding katanas. I just don't agree. I mean, if your people are superhuman, which to be fair in Final Fantasy VII, they are superhumans, that's fine, but I like my mundane humans that don't have superpowers. So it's fun to like have settings where they can still compete in some way that makes sense. What's your limit on tech then for your fantasy campaign? Right now, I am going way outside my wheelhouse to even allow gunpowder. I have traditionally been very anti-gunpowder, but I mean, gunpowder and mounted knights and like armored combat coexisted for about 400 years. People don't really know that, I don't feel like, but yeah, there were knights running around with fucking like pistols and shit. Not modern pistols, but you know, gunpowder coexisted with armored combat for a long time, so I'm trying to be a little less of an asshole for it. So yeah. Yep, full plates way after gunpowder was a thing. Is cosmic power sorcery or sci-fi? Sorcery, I've decided. So the general flavor is kind of 17th century. Yeah, roughly 16th, 17th-ish, depending. I mean, it also depends on the society, right? Because much like in our world, not all societies advance at the same rate, and technological advancements obviously propel a society in their combat capabilities and their ability to expand, but so do magic advancements, right? Because magic and technology serve the same purpose as far as cultural advancement goes, typically. Isn't there a school for gravity magic in 5e? Not standard, I don't think. Do you permit stuff like psionic subclasses for fighter, rogue, and sorcerer? I haven't seen those, nor do I know about them, but yeah, I don't see why not. I would say that's a school of magic. What about rune magic? Sure, I don't see why not. Sounds roughly similar to Warhammer Fantasy in terms of tech and magic levels. Yeah, Mr. Lex, typically I am a little bit pre-Warhammer levels of tech. I don't love the idea of tanks and Gatling guns coexisting on a battlefield with, like, the Bretonnians or Wood Elves. But I could tolerate, like, flintlock weaponry. I'll deal with it. I take it firearms are to the point where they're reliable, rather than the earliest firearms where there's a coin flip on either maiming the wielder or successfully firing. I think there's definitely an opportunity, technically, that they could maim the wielder. They're not, like, perfect. They're definitely very early. I mean, the society that invented firearms is directly to the southeast, so they're dangerous. But no, if a player gets a hold of a firearm, I'm not going to make them coin flip on whether or not it explodes. But there will definitely be stories of them exploding. Are there cannons yet? Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, guns failing to fire in rain or humid areas would be funny. How do you feel about the level of tech in Avatar: The Last Airbender? I tolerate it. It's good. I really like it. But the whole... I like it because it's creative and it works around the Fire Nation's, like, benders as the needed resource to make it work. But I do think it's pretty fucking hyper advanced. Kind of out of nowhere. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I like the air blimps. The tanks are a little pushing it for me. The train with the drill was definitely pushing it. I don't particularly like the level of tech in Legend of Korra, but whatever. Teach their own. Didn't cannons exist before handheld guns anyway? Yup, sure did. I don't dislike Korra. I just don't love the level of tech in Korra, frankly. What about bombs? Oh, like grenades? I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be a fun tool to give to like fighters and rogues and other characters that don't typically have spells to cast. Be a good opportunity to give them something that's an AoE. So yeah, I'd give them bombs. I wouldn't make it easy and it'd probably cost a lot, but yeah, I'd give them bombs. How do I feel about the longevity of elves? I toned it down quite a bit, Benjis. I think my longest lived elves are 500 at their upper spectrum, like as far as they can go. Dwarves live for 150, 200-ish years, nothing super wild. Elves live, I would assume, at their highest 500. I would say on average, I don't know, 350, 400-ish. That's dangerous because the problem with immortal elves or 1,000-year-old elves is that there's no mystery left if an elf exists, right? The problem with elves is that if, let's say you see the ruins, right? Oh my God, the ruins of a kingdom. I wonder what happened here. The world's so mysterious and like cool and awesome and wow, we'll never know. And then an elf down the road's like, nah, dude, I saw that. Like, I saw that 3 kingdoms ago. Some dumbass, like, it stated a bad tax reform as people rebelled, and then they were eventually overrun by their neighbors, and then that got taken down by a dragon, and then eventually that dragon was felled, and the kingdom was just left to rot. You know, no big deal. Yeah, that's what happened. And they're like, oh, cool. Thanks for telling us. He's like, yep, no big deal. Anyway, see ya. It's like, oh, there's a lost artifact of fucking Maflagalabadob's fucking phallic fucking head bonking stick. And they're like, oh, okay, where is it? It's been gone for centuries. No one's alive who still remembers it exists. And then Elf's like, no, I do. I was there. I saw it. Yeah, it's over there. It's in that fucking, like, swamp house, you know? I was there, Gandalf. Yeah, it's the I was there, Gandalf thing. So I imagine there's a couple things you could do to make elves' longevity a little less problematic. One, make it so elves don't live immortal. I think immortal is silly. I think it's dumb. I think it kills the fantasy of your world. 500 years is already really pushing it. I mean, so to put this in, let's put this in perspective real quick. If an elf lived for 500 years, look at me, an elf would be alive today who witnessed like the 1500s, who was there, who could be like, yeah, I was there. They were there for the rise of like fucking full plate armor, the discovery of a new continent, planes, advanced guns, electricity, technology, the internet. Like, it's just no way, dude. You can give entirely different moral codes. Yeah, you can make them super alien. For me, I lower their lifespan. 500's already pushing it. I make them incredibly rare. Elves were already supposed to be a rare player race that you weren't, like, everybody wasn't supposed to play all the time, but I'm making them very rare. Like, seeing an elf is going to be, whoa, what the fuck? You will almost never, ever see an elf in a human settlement, no matter what. You might see them out in the wild if you're very lucky. And I'm making them slow to breed, just as easy as anybody else to die. Incredibly combat adverse because they have super high sensitivity. I'll explain that later. I'll tell you about how that works later on. And I'm also giving them very insular society. At least the elves in this setting have an insular society because obviously they would probably be very xenophobic to a degree because of their super high sensitivity. Yeah. So there you go. Now, not all elves are going to be like this. I'm sure there's been one elven culture in this setting somewhere at some point that started an empire. But when you're a people who live forever but take years to gestate and be birthed, you can't really afford to go to war and be a conquering nation of hyper-aggressive people. It just isn't going to work. You'll be wiped out to a man, no matter how much better you are than everybody else. They have really strong emotions and thus easily develop PTSD from combat situations like 40k Eldar. So not exactly. What I mean when I say they have high sensitivity is they literally have high sensitivity. Like the elves in my setting are going to have stronger receptors underneath the skin attached to their, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Their nervous system. That makes it so that it's part of the reason they've achieved their fucking, like, mystical nature from humanity's perspective, right? So they could, like, touch a tree, right? And that tree is going to, they can feel, like, the liquid running through that tree. They can feel how healthy that tree is to a degree. But also, they can feel the clanging of a sword much stronger in their hand. They can hear things at, like, a much higher volume, whatever. You get what I'm saying? So human settlements are going to be anathema to them because it's just too loud. There's too much happening all the fucking time. Humans do loud work and loud projects. They talk loud. They're not soft-spoken. They tend to be very aggressive. They like war. That's going to make it very difficult for an elf to exist in any society other than their own society. They just feel things in a much more significant way, which evolved in them because they were probably prey creatures originally in whatever, you know, part of the world they evolved in. But now it has made them hyper aware and have an insanely high perception ability and probably insight, but it's also made them very vulnerable to super loud sounds or, you know, high pressure situations that could involve getting the shit kicked out of them. Something like that, yeah. Man, get me away from the city. Yeah. So Dusk says, okay, that's a really great way to flavor the enchantments, the enhancements. All coins have two sides, after all. So when I design my fantasy races, I try to work backwards from what I see as the core of that race, and I explain it preferably through biology first, and then I layer mysticism on top of that, right? So the elves evolved those because they were prey creatures, but they don't think that. They were blessed by their gods to have those abilities because they're better or more deserving or whatever, right? Like, they don't understand biology. They don't understand, like, the science behind it. But I, as the world creator, understand it, and I will tell the players about that, of course. That being said, they don't believe that. That doesn't matter to them. There's birds nearby their environment. Can't imagine that's pleasant either. So it's different, right? Like the hyper like noise sensitivity isn't going to be so bad that it's going to kill them. I mean, it's the same as like a dog's hearing being better, right? Or a cat's hearing being better. It's they're attuned to sounds and they hear better than people, and they don't like loud abrasive sounds constantly, but it's not like it's gonna fucking flashbang them the moment they hear a hammer hit metal. It sucks, it's not fun, it's very annoying, it's very jarring, but it's not gonna be like, oh, I can't handle it, I'm gonna fall on my knees. It's just not a situation they want to be in. See you later, Nitro Rugrat. So birdsong isn't going to kill them. It's probably something they're relatively used to, I'd imagine. But anyway, what I was saying, I guess, as far as the way I design fantasy races, let's take a look at elves, right? So the core to elves to me is that they're long-lived. They tend to have some weird connection to life or nature, hence the hypersensitivity of touch. They tend to have very good senses as far as sight and sound. I'm justifying this as they have incredible hearing, specifically directional hearing, hence the larger ears. And they seem to have incredible sight, not because they actually do, but because they can pinpoint sounds better than a human, right? So when they're incredible with bows, it's not because they have better vision than humans. They can just tell where sounds are coming from, and it makes them better at honing in on where they're shooting, right? Don't you hate it when you open a bag of chips and a nearby elf comes running? I hate that shit. So if elves are prey animals, though, why do they breed so infrequently? That's a good question. I'm not 100% certain about that yet, Vevictus. I mean, there's some prey animals that breed slowly, right? Elephants aren't predators. Not that they breed that slow, but you get the idea. Yeah, they're kind of tuned to a different frequency. Now, how do I explain the longevity? I mean, I don't have to explain that so much as they have incredibly slow breeding cycles, and I want them to have a high longevity because that's elves. The biology of that is probably that their cells just replicate more perfectly than humans, which they don't know. They just think they were blessed with long life because they're, I don't know, they're deserving of that. But realistically, their cells probably just replicate more perfectly than humans. They have less degradation per cell split. Now, yeah, telemetes. Yeah, that's the word. That's the word. As far as the eternal beauty thing, I'm going to assume that elves are just more prone to gender ambiguity, which is to say there's less gender dimorphism between them. Like the masculine presenting elves probably don't grow significantly more muscular than like femme presenting elves. They probably don't develop much body hair. And I think culturally they would sort of espouse the idea of a sort of like at least the elves in this setting, or in this culture, specifically in the northwest of this map. Not all elves are going to do this, obviously, because culture is different depending on where you're at and where you were raised. But the elves in the northwest of this map specifically value gender ambiguity. They value the idea that the closer you could be to not drifting toward masculine or feminine presenting, the closer you are to the god that they believe they originated from, that was split in twain into masc and femme by like their progenitor, original fucking sin or whatever. There's a whole thing around it. I'll explain it at some point in more detail. Anyway, that's the general thought process behind it. I design my fantasy races backwards with biology, and then I add religion and mysticism on top of it. Right? There you go. Non-binary. That's the word I was looking for. God, I don't know why I struggled so hard to get to that. I just got home from work and was not expecting you to be live. How am I feeling? A little better. Much better. My voice is better. Hi, Carrie Glasgow. Thanks for the soup. Would they have breeding seasons? I don't know if I want to do that because that opens up the door to like fetish stuff, which is fine. I don't give a fuck. Do what you want, but I don't know if I would necessarily want to enforce anything like that because people are going to be like, okay, now it's time for the fucking ABO elf fanfics. And I'm like, I'm good on that, thanks. Like, that's cool if that's your thing, but I'm good on that, thanks. I think it's probably just elves don't breed often. One, because elves are so, like, non-binary that you're probably going to get a lot of pairings that end up not realizing that they're masc or femme presenting until they're, like, already in love. So they're like, oh, well, I'm an elf dude, you're an elf dude, but we didn't really recognize that until we'd already decided we loved each other, so that's not really a mating pair. Or, you know, I'm an elf girl and you're an elf girl, and we didn't recognize that until we're, like, already together, and we're not a mating pair. And also, I think it's a huge commitment culturally to, like, carry an elf child with you for, like, 4 fucking years or 5 years or whatever it takes. So it's something that's seen as, like, a big, like, undertaking, a big achievement or a big goal that you plan around and not something that you just do, right? Like, it's not an accident, probably. Do I read fanfics? Not really. I don't think there's anything wrong with fanfics. I think they're cool. I don't have a lot of free time. And I find a lot of fanfics are very... They could feel diminishing of the characters. They could feel very much like, I wish this character was this way, and it is fan fiction, go for it, but it's not my thing. Like, I like the characters for their foibles and their flaws, typically, and I feel those are often ironed out in fanfic. Not all fanfics, obviously. Some are incredibly well written. Just typically, that's not my bag of beans. You know what I mean? I feel like extended gestation wouldn't make sense. Just infrequent pregnancy. Could be. It could be it's just difficult for them to get pregnant. But I think extended gestation's funnier because it makes them incredibly... it makes it kind of just a bad thing, right? Not literally, like it's good for their culture, it's good for them, it's very fulfilling to have a kid, blah, 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 whatever, et cetera, et cetera. As a non-parent, I don't know, that's fine. But I think it makes it risky for them to be pregnant in the first place, which makes it more likely that you have fewer elves. And the fewer elves, the better. Not that I hate elves. Elves are cool. But I find them incredibly overpowered, and I don't want a ton of them. Child came out with a full head of hair and walking day one. Yeah, I did that too. Do giants exist? Probably, but not here. On an evolutionary standpoint, a 5-year period where a grown adult is super vulnerable, seems like it had been Darwined at some point. Yeah, debatably, but I mean, if we're going to argue evolution in its like strictest, most serious context, like a world where dragons exist means everybody would have been Darwined a long time ago. Nobody would be able, no sentient race would have ever risen if sentient giant reptiles that fire lightning and fire and acid were flying around. Like, it just wouldn't happen. What subspecies of elves do you have in your world? I don't like the subspecies thing as much as I like different cultures that have different vibes, but I mean, at best, high elves and wood elves, maybe. I think just like defining your D&D races by subspecies is kind of boring, right? How about high humans? See, that's what I mean, though, because you don't have high humans or wood humans or fucking drow humans. That doesn't exist. It's just humans. But, like, there are different races of humans, obviously, but you don't consider them, like, a whole new species. They don't get different abilities. I think that, like, having abilities attached to the species itself, like elves always get the plus to perception, right? But there's no special bonus to being a wood elf other than probably what starting skills you would have, like survival. I don't know yet. I haven't decided. I haven't decided how I feel about that. I think my main problem with having subspecies of like elves and dwarves and halflings is that it discourages subcultures, right? If you have like, oh, these are the wood elves and these are the high elves, all wood elves are monocultural, right? You assume every wood elf you find everywhere always has the exact same tree-hugging, fucking bear-kissing, bow-shooting culture, and I think that's boring. I don't know. I feel like wood elves should have tons of different cultures in different societies depending on where they're at. Yeah, maybe Kinga. I haven't, like, super settled on them being prey creatures originally yet. I was just trying to find justification for the hypersensitivity in the ears. I mean, they could be essentially like bats, right? They could have evolved, like, kind of convergently with bats, where the hypersensitivity of the ears was to help them track down otherwise very difficult to find prey in dark forests, which is why they live in forests. So maybe elves aren't prey creatures more so than they're very dangerous predators originally. That, like, you know, primeval people have horror stories about. Elves can find you anywhere, no matter where you hide, no matter how dark it is. They can hunt you down. They'll hear you moving anywhere, etc. type of deal. Yes, Alteron, exactly. Kind of like Warhammer in that regard. Yeah, yeah. This world got vampires? Yep. Phil Weasel says, I feel like if they just had one type of elf in the rulebook, most GMs would make them even more monocultural. So I feel like that's a rulebook problem. I think that it is natural for us to assume humans have hundreds and thousands and millions of fucking cultures, and that every fantasy race is a monocultural replacement for a culture we don't want to bother giving humans, which is pretty shitty. I mean, if I see one more fucking setting just say, Aztecs don't exist, that's Lizardmen. Boo! Boo! Just put the Aztecs in. Let the Lizardmen live alongside them or in a similar, like, setting, that's fine. If you want, like, vaguely Mesoamerican themed Lizardmen, that's really cool. I like that aesthetic too. But to just get rid of the Aztecs and Mesoamerican cultures because you don't want to bother with it seems really lazy. And also, I mean, yeah, Mesoamerican Lizardmen are cool, but I also want Lizardmen, like, eventually developing some sort of cool-ass fucking armor and, like, swinging around, like, warhammers and longswords. I think that sounds awesome. I'm down. Let's do it. The Warhammer Fantasy call-out? Listen, Banjus. Warhammer Fantasy is the reason I fell in love with Lizardmen, and I love Mesoamerican Lizardmen aesthetics. It will always have my heart, but to just get rid of Mesoamerican culture for that just seems lazy and boring. And then to say that's their monoculture and it's not anything else, no matter where you go, is lazy and boring. I want different cultures of Lizardmen in different areas. I think that's fun. I want different cultures of elves in different areas. I think that's fun. Give me cool-ass desert elves. You know what actually does this really well, funnily enough, and has, like, distinct, like, aesthetics and outfit design for their cultures of elves is fucking Dragon Prince. The writing's not always great, and the first season was a bit of a slog. But I will say the actual design for the elves in that, chef's kiss. Good job. Do you have a magic school academy in your world? I want to learn necromancy, says Darling Ascari. So there is a magic academy of sorts in Theosi. And there's other ways to learn magic in other cultures. But it depends. So yes, there are academies where you learn it. Am I familiar with carcinization? Carcinization. Wow, I always want to say carcinization. I don't know why I want to add an extra I in there. Carcinization? Yes, I am familiar. All things evolved to crab. Dark Sun? I haven't seen that. That's fucking awesome, Robert Reaganator 69. Oh, is this 2E setting, huh? Interesting. Anyway, I think that's it for now. I do need to rest my voice a little bit. I had to be up pretty early for vocal lessons. So I got to take a little blink. And by blink, I mean I'm probably going to go keep working on Hollow Marches for a while and finishing toning up some of the quest lines. And I might start rolling around some names on Wheel of Axles, or maybe I'll save that for the membership stream. We're doing a Minchi next week for Hollow Marches, by the way, so I'm going to be focusing in on that next week again. Like I said, the Minchi did not just magically go away. Don't worry, we're still going to do that. It's just moved over to the next week. Yeah, so look forward to that. I do not see anybody upcoming for a raid, so I'm going to raid into... Fuck, is anybody going live anytime soon? You know what? Fuck it. Nobody's live right now. I don't care. We're not raiding. Fuck it. Wait, I don't have Rob Perms at the moment. Sorry. Sorry, Dabadoo. Good night, gamers. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I will catch you later. You can manual raid. Hell yeah, let's do it. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm gonna go take a break. I know we didn't work on the map at all. I apologize. This is my, hey, this is what the players are gonna see at the start of the game map. I might even make the hexes just a tad smaller. I don't know yet. It depends on how much I want them to struggle to get around. Yeah, that's it. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Bye. I'll see you tomorrow. Nope. Wait. Actually, it's good that I'm resting my voice tomorrow, just in case. I did just do a lot of talking. It's probably for the best. Hey, thanks for 8 months, Awashi. It's probably for the best I rest my voice, especially if I'm going to do vocal lessons tomorrow. So I will not be here tomorrow, but I will be here Friday for Hunt Showdown. That is going to be at our typical EST 9 p.m. time. I will see you there. And then Saturday, apparently Zaid is going to be streaming on my day off. So that's good for him, I guess. All right, gamers. Yeah, fuck off. Bye. Manual raid. Bye. Have fun at Rabadoos.